I'm President and CEO of Graduate School USA, and I'm very, very pleased and honored to welcome you here to our, Federal Workforce Development Conference. As our theme proclaims, we are endeavoring to provide your organizations with information on how to achieve your missions by engaging and empowering your employees. We are joined today by 3 federal agencies, each of whom have employee engagement as an impetus for mission advancement and success. These agencies, the U.S. Government Publishing Office, the National Geospatial-Intelligence College, and Social Security Administration's Office of Buildings Management, also happen to be our Deming Award winners. Our Deming Award winners are those organizations that have particularly excelled in providing training for their employees for the advancement of mission. And we give this award out to 3 agencies each year. This last year happened to be 4 agencies, but as we mentioned, 3 of them are here today. And we are in the nomination phase of accepting those nominations from agencies who would like to be considered for a Deming Award going forward. But each of these teams today will discuss their award-winning initiatives and how engaging their employees through training and education improve their agency's effectiveness and resolve an organizational challenge. We're honored that you have joined us today, and for what promises to be, I hope, a rewarding half-day for you, where you'll be able to glean some very useful information and network and exchange ideas with your fellow attendees. So without further ado, I'd like to get this started so that we can get our agencies out in front of you as quickly as possible. We have a very, very great keynote speaker today, and I'm very happy to be introducing her. Davita Vance-Cooks. Davita is the Director of Public Sector, the practice of Public Sector at Thornton. She has more than 35 years of combined experience in the public administration private sector operations with a history of transforming organizations. Her special expertise is in the areas of change management and business process reengineering. Ms. Vance-Cooks has a broad knowledge of public sector management, having served as the agency director and CEO for the Government Publishing Office, which is, as you all know, a legislative fee-based agency. She has also over 20 years of public sector experience in the health industry, serving in executive level positions in charge of claims, customer service, contact center, enrollment, billing, strategic planning, market research, and product development. So the full gamut of what organizations do. As head of GPO, Ms. Vance-Cooks served as the agency's chief executive officer. She was the first woman and the first African American to lead the agency. And during her tenure, she successfully re-engineered business processes, utilized change management strategies that led to organizational transformation of the agency from a print-centric manufacturing facility to a content-centric publishing organization. And I've heard that story from Davita in the past, and it's quite a story of transformation that really reflects what's going on in our societies now in terms of how technology is impacting our organizations and our business. Ms. Vance-Cooks is currently the director, as I mentioned, of public sector at Thornton, and in that role she is responsible for providing organizational change management to clients. These include stakeholder assessments, change impact assessments, communication planning, change readiness, and end user training programs. She also engages in shared services, marketing strategy development. So if those things sound of interest to you and your agencies, please take some time to carve out a conversation with Davita. She holds an MBA in Marketing and Finance from Columbia University and a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Tufts University. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Davita here as our keynote speaker. If you would please welcome her.
Oh, let's try that again. again, good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. Let's see if I can get everything straight. Jack, thank you so very much for your warm introduction. I really appreciate it. And a very special thank you to all of the individuals at the Graduate School USA who demonstrate such wonderful, gracious hospitality. I truly appreciate the invitation from the Graduate School USA to serve as the keynote speaker for the Federal Workforce Development Conference. And I'm beyond excited to have this opportunity to talk to you because leadership development is near and dear to my heart. Before I begin my remarks, I would like to bring greetings to you from the men and women of Grant Thornton. And I would also like to publicly thank Dan Milkey, sitting over there just like this. Why is she calling out my name? The GPO's Chief Human Capital Officer, who so graciously contacted me about this engagement. And I also want to give a special thank you to Kim Price Harwood, who kept me apprised of the conference planning details. And I was teasing her a few minutes ago when she said, "You need to be here at 7:45. And I said, "Oh, can you imagine?" But I'm here. I made it. I made it. Bear with me. Let's see if I get this. Mike Hunter, are you around?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
There you go. Thank you. The theme of my keynote speech is building the next generation of leaders. And as part of that discussion, I will reflect on the importance of building the next generation of leaders, the preferred leadership style to manage the changes that we are experiencing in the workplace, and the importance of building a culture of strategic leadership training for a uniquely different generation. I read somewhere that the only constant in today's workplace is change. How many of you have heard that? Managing that change so that an organization can grow and survive is critical. And when I think of workplace changes, I'm reminded of a political cartoon that I recently saw. And I'm going to describe it to you, and if you've heard it or if you've seen this cartoon, raise your hand. There are a number of people sitting around a table, they're employees, and the person at the head of the table says, "Instead of risking anything new, let's play it safe by continuing our slow decline into obsolescence." You've heard it? Have you seen that cartoon? It's a winner. And I remember thinking, whoa, that's deep. That's really something. But it reinforced my belief that building the next generation of leaders is important because it sends a message. And the message that it sends is that obsolescence is not an option. And leadership matters. And that managing change is critical. Now, as you can tell from Jack's introduction, I've been in the workplace for quite a while. I started my career in the private industry, and I spent over 20 plus years in that arena. Then I moved into the public sector for another 13 years. And now I'm back in the private sector, specializing in change management and leadership development. And I love every minute of what I do. I've held multiple executive leadership positions in both strategic and operational arenas. And I even served as the Chief Executive Officer for a federal government agency. And at this point, you should be thinking, gee, she looks good. But I have seen, and if you're not thinking that, I'm sharing with you that's what you're But I have seen firsthand the benefits to an organization when leadership development is integrated into the organizational culture. And I have seen organizations fail to thrive because leadership development is neglected. So as you can imagine, I have learned a lot of lessons about leadership. One of the most significant lessons that I have learned is that when you are faced with an organizational change, and obsolescence is not an option, then transformational leadership is required. Seth Godin, an American author, once said, and he was so eloquent when he summarized it, he said that transformational leaders don't start by denying the world around them. Instead, they describe a future they would like to create themselves. So that means that we have to build the next generation of leaders by actively unlocking their potential to be transformational leaders. And it will require what I call the 4 C's: connectivity, creativity, collaboration, and competencies. Tomorrow's leaders will come from the millennials. There's no way to ignore it. It's hard to believe, but approximately 10,000 baby boomers are retiring each and every day. Let me repeat that number, 10,000. And as baby boomers exit the workforce, the millennials are coming in. And they're assuming those leadership roles. The Millennial Generation, as you can see from the slide, is the fastest growing segment of the workforce. It is the largest generation yet. It is the most ethnically and racially diverse. This is the digital generation. Their lives have been shaped by technological change. They are confident, achievement-oriented. They have high expectations, and they aspire to make a difference with their work. Their unique characteristics cannot be ignored. And the traditional rules that we have for leadership development will not apply with this generation. And when you think about developing leaders in the public sector, you know, because you're there, that it presents its own set of unique challenges. True?
Yes.
Let me hear that. Let me hear it. Amen. Amen. There you go. Thank you. The digital expertise in the millennials will be critical in meeting the demands of the digital government. These individuals will influence significantly government's delivery of services. And according to a 2014 millennial survey, millennials consider government to have the greatest potential to address society's issues. And that's a good thing. They're civic-oriented, global citizens who believe they have a responsibility to make the world a better place. And their leadership roles will provide the opportunity to shape government responses to complex public service issues. So when we build the next generation of leaders, we must find a way to transfer our institutional knowledge. Let me repeat that. We must find a way to transfer our institutional knowledge. Why? Because we owe them our knowledge base so that they can make informed decisions. There is a saying that is very applicable here. Those who don't know history are doomed to recreate it. That's appropriate in this case, and it is our responsibility. I love this political cartoon. As you can tell, I keep telling you about political cartoons, but that's because I read a lot. Now, look at this cartoon. The next generation of leaders must have the ability to lead change. They have a tremendous responsibility to lead the change effort. It is really easy to talk about leading change. Have you noticed everybody talks about it, but nobody wants to do it? And when you ask them to do it, you can't find them. It's like crickets, right? Watch what happens here. The gentleman asks, who wants change? Everybody raises their hand. Why? Because it's politically correct. Oh, yes, I want change. But then he asks, who wants to change? Put your hand down, put your head down, you know, don't look at me. And then he asks, who wants to lead the change? Nobody's there. Everybody's gone. That's a significant factor. We must build a generation of leaders who aren't afraid to lead the change, who are willing to step up to lead the change. And we need to make sure that we build the generation to be able to do that. And that takes us into the key. We must build a generation of transformational leaders at all levels, in all areas, regardless of grade level, regardless of title, regardless of job category. Being a transformational leader is not for the chosen few. It should not be a private club. The transformational leader has the key to unlock what is in order to achieve what can be. The transformational leaders, who are they? They're the ones who can motivate and inspire followers. They're the ones who can direct positive transformation. They're the ones who are committed to helping the organization achieve its goals. They are the ones who understand the importance of developing employee potential. Did you know that research has indicated that the style of leadership transformation results in higher performance and employee satisfaction more so than any other leadership style? Did you all know that? Okay, you're supposed to say, no. Right. You can't say, what? Okay. And quite frankly, I have to admit to you that I'm excited and encouraged about the fact that transformational leadership is going to make a difference. So let's look at why am I so excited. Because when I tell people at work about the importance of transformational leadership, they want to know, well, why are you so excited about it? What's going on with transformational leadership? Well, look at the 4 I's. What's not to like? Let's talk about what are the components of transformational leadership. First of all, they have what is called idealized influence. These are the ones who act as role models. They're willing to take risks. They're willing to follow their set of core values and stick to it. And they're willing to build the trust with their followers, who in turn develop confidence in their leader. And you all know that people will buy into leadership before they buy into your mission. So you need to make sure that you become a transformational leader with idealized influence. What about the other I? Inspirational motivation. These are the leaders who can articulate a clear vision for the future. They see it. They can drive towards it. They will communicate the expectations because they have such clear and clarity in communication. And they demonstrate a commitment to the goals. What about individualized consideration? This is the leader who has to recognize what motivates you, and you. Because what motivates all of us is not the same. They take the time to understand what really makes you tick. And then there is intellectual stimulation. This is the leader who supports the followers by involving them in the decision-making process. They don't tell you what to do, they bring you together to involve you in the decision-making process. And stimulating their efforts to be as creative and innovative as possible in developing solutions. When I became the head of the GPO, my favorite organization, my favorite federal agency, yes it is, you guys. At the time that I became the head of the agency, it was called the Government Printing Office. Many congressional and industry leaders asked me in congressional hearings, why is a printing office needed when tangible print was declining and digital information was increasing? And quite frankly, that's a very good question. And it was a very good question. I knew then, as I know now, obsolescence was not an option. And I knew that in order for the GPO to survive, we had to work together to transform that business model from a print-centric manufacturing facility to a content-centric publishing operation. And I understood that transformational leaders were needed across the agency, not from the top down, across the agency. And part of that process involved developing the LEAD program, created by Dan Milkey and his training staff, Stuart Lane, and they're going to talk about it, which is why I'm going to stick around to hear you talk about it. They will discuss the program in more detail during this program. We ended up developing transformational leaders at all levels across the entire agency. We're talking about leaders at the top, and we're talking about leaders all the way at the bottom. They had to believe in the change, in the transformation, and they had to believe that they had a right to participate in that decision-making process. There is no doubt in my mind that this strategy contributed to the successful transformation in the GPO. In 2014, after demonstrating successful transformation to publishing, Congress passed legislation to change the name of this agency from the Government Printing Office to the Government Publishing Office. You can say that's good. That's good. That is really good. So let me recap. We need to build the next generation of leaders because we are helping to create the future. We're helping to ensure change. We're helping to manage the change. And although there are other workforce segments besides the millennials that can and should participate in leadership development, I highlighted the need to focus on the millennial generation because of the sheer size of that workforce segment. I recently read that in 7 years, in 2025, 75% of the global workforce will be the millennials. Consider that. And so I ask you to consider a number of things. I ask you to consider that developing transformational leaders, above all leadership styles, is important because it is the most effective and the most inclusive. I ask you to consider that you need to develop a culture of strategic leadership within your organization that combines the old and the new tools to create something very different. I ask you to leverage the power of technology and e-learning and blend it with the human need for feedback and guidance. I ask you to cultivate a continuous learning environment that rewards self-direction and self-motivation. I ask you to consider the value of coaching and mentoring to establish connections and retain good employees. I ask you further to consider developing authentic knowledge management systems by promoting cross-functional teams and access to subject matter experts. And I end by asking you one more favor. Be inclusive, not restrictive, in your leadership development programs. Tomorrow's leaders should not think that developing themselves should be only for the chosen few. It should not be restrictive. Let's embrace our relationships. Let's embrace the responsibility and help to unleash the potential of tomorrow's leaders. And you might ask, why are we doing this? It's very simple. Leadership matters, and leadership development matters even more. Thank you. I'm allowed to stand up here for a few minutes and answer any questions you may have or any comments you would like to make. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you talked about transferring institutional knowledge. How do you think the area of knowledge management can assist in that way?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a cultural issue. I'm sorry, what is your name?
Kathy Callahan, U.S. Army.
Hi, Kathy. I think there are several issues. First of all, I think it's a cultural issue in every agency that they need to even understand the importance of knowledge management. We have in our agencies multi-generationals, and you have some generations that want to hold on to their information because I learned it my way and you're not going to learn it the easy way. And so in a sense, the first thing is to change the culture in a way by explaining to the generation that actually has the information how important it is for them to transfer it. And I would ask people to consider developing programs that motivate them to communicate that information. What I've seen typically in organizations is that they make it mandatory and then no one follows up. No one bothers to do anything about it. One of the things I would encourage them to do is to make it part of their performance plan. When you make something part of someone's performance plan, it's just amazing to me how things get done, okay? But if you tie that together, and you state that if you do this, this is what happens, you get a raise and all of this other kind of stuff, it will really happen. And also I think we need to make sure that the millennial generation, as part of that knowledge management process, it can be formal, but it can also be informal. I love the idea of having cross-functional teams. There's some benefit to that. Even though people think it's tedious, those millennials are actually learning from you. They're learning what you're doing, what you're saying. And also, we need to give them more access to subject matter experts. So, quick summary, make it part of the performance management. Try to integrate it into your culture. Great question. Any other? Oh. Good? I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. I'll be around to chat with you later. Okay.
Thank you, Davita. That was truly inspiring. Please join me in giving her another. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kim Price Harwood, Head of Marketing, Communications, and Customer Service here at Graduate School USA. And it's my pleasure to introduce our first team of presenters, the Social Security Administration Office of Buildings Management, Kelly Barr, Claude Lacombe, Annie Greaves, and Sandy Eddington. They will provide information on how they strengthen their workforce, foster the team environment, and enhance the quality of their team's performance. Ladies and gentlemen, the OBM team.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Barr. I'm the Director for Office of Building Management. Brought together with my team today to come to illustrate to you what we've been able to accomplish over the years and move forward and accepting this prestigious award that we did back about a year ago now. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the school for allowing us to come and present. Also the SSA leadership for empowering us to be able to demonstrate what we can do. Also the Office of Learning for SSA. And then of course GSA for working collaboratively with us moving forward. So Mr. Deming once said, all anyone asks for is a chance to work with pride. SSA was able to do this and showcase it. Slides. It's not showing. It's not showing. So we were able to achieve the Edward Deming Outstanding Training Award for Human Capital Management. And we did that through our training plan that we developed, as well as employee development and empowerment engagement. Kind of the key thing is, what does Office of Building Management do? We're actually a well-diverse organization. We actually run and maintain 11 facilities up at the Baltimore area, and also to include 5 regional buildings through the United States. We have several buildings in various locations. One of our buildings we have is actually in Harold, Washington. It's in Chicago. We also have a building in Richmond, California. It's classified as our Hagel building. We have one in Wilkes-Barre Dock in Pennsylvania. We also have a building in New York, Queens, New York. Or excuse me, Jamaica, New York. And also we have a couple lease buildings throughout as well, one being in North Carolina as well. We have about 10 million square feet total, about 10 million square feet total. And there are a lot of them range from data centers, and they provide support to the American people, providing various programs through disability, Social Security, entitlements, etc. Who are we? We're a well-diverse group of people. As I stated, we have a series of blue-collar and white-collar workers. White-collar workers working from project managers, energy managers, building managers, contract managers. So various, arsenal, so to say, of managers. And we also have the blue-collar side of the house. All right. So we also have plumbers, electricians, carpenters, and heating, ventilation, air conditioning people. So through that, we were able to leverage those people in order to achieve what we were able to do. And that is kind of empowering those, the SMEs as we use, the subject matter experts, and use their ideas on how to make our programs better. And that's what we were able to do. And we kind of developed a mission statement. Our mission statement is to provide quality and timely customer-focused service in order to ensure SSA employees can deliver superior Social Security services that meet a changing need of the public. We currently look for innovation and novel approaches to improve efficiencies in our buildings and facility management processes. And one of our mottos our motto is service you deserve and people you trust. Okay? So we basically embrace everybody in our program to be the forefront of our projects and programs. Teamwork has always been a critical aspect of me when I first came on board, when I actually established the team about 4 years ago. I'm kind of a results-driven individual, and we actually, through transactional surveys, sent out surveys back in 2015, and just a basic assessment of how the customer service needs were. Baseline in 2015, we're at 54%, and through employee engagement and empowerment, in 2016, we achieved an 81% rating. And to continue with that, last year, we increased it up to 85% through transactional surveys. And that was allowing our individuals, our employees, to have a voice, let them have a say, and let them make the decisions that was critical for what we needed to do to make day-to-day operations. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to the people that actually helped generate the program and push the program. And I'm going to pass it off to my acting deputy director, Ms. Sandy Eddy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sandy Eddington, and I am currently the acting deputy director. I put this down for the Office of Buildings Management. When Claude mentioned to us a couple weeks ago that we were invited this morning to speak to you today about our training and our development, I was like, oh, that's very strange, because we're used to working as an organization behind the scenes and not standing here in front of a podium giving a training on how we have developed our training and our programs. So thank you very much for being here and for us to be able to share that with you today. When talking with people that work outside of building operations, whether you work in human relations, IT, the legal field, and they say, so what is building operations? Well, short answer would be, well, we operate the buildings. And they say, well, what does that mean? So there are a lot of different services we provide. When walking in here this morning, my first thing was taking a look around. Most of you probably walked in wondering, where's the agenda, the program? I was like, are the lights on? Is the HVAC running? I know over here I was first warm, and then I was cold. I looked at the carpet. Is the carpet clean? I wanted to make sure I would look around and see, are the chairs set up? Are the tables ready? The snacks that are provided and the breakfast this morning, is it ready? Is it for everyone to enjoy? So basically that is what we do in the Office of Buildings Management. We respond to emergencies, we respond to floods. We had a roof that actually came off one of our buildings in the Woodlawn area a year and a half ago. We just had a sewer pipe break that occurred in one of our other national computer centers a week and a half ago, where the personnel had to go home for the day. And fortunately, we were able to do a temporary fix and then have a full fix prior to midnight that evening for the next shift to be able to come into work. OBM mission, service you deserve, people you trust. And our mission statement, what we did about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we engaged with our employees throughout OBM, about 180, and we asked them what they believed to be the aim of our organization. And they provided their feedback, and based on the ones that we received, about 3 or 4 were actually very good, and then we sent those 3 or 4 out again for people to be able to vote on, and that was the one that was selected. Our organization, actually in the Office of Buildings Management, what I want to call our front office piece, where we have the office director and the deputy office director. Within that area, we also have human resources, we have budget, we also have our admin staff, and then we also have Tririgo, which is our software repository for our assets and our facilities. We are made up of 4 different divisions. The Division of Building Operations, and that division has oversight of approximately 5 million square foot of space. They're comprised of facility managers, building managers, project managers, and contract COTARs. In the division for data centers, we operate 24/7 data centers in Woodlawn and also in Urbana. And they also have contract oversight and project oversight through GSA. And they also have in-house wage grade employees, the ones that fix the lights, perform preventive maintenance. In our Division of Delegated Programs, they have oversight of our regional facilities that Kelly spoke of. They're the ones in California and Pennsylvania, New York, and Illinois. And then they also work with GSA, the General Services Administration, on our major capital improvement projects. Division of Mechanical Maintenance, that is our largest division. They're the ones that actually go out and perform the preventive maintenance, make sure the HVAC is running, and all of our technical personnel. And they're also ones that have the conference room set up. So we have 4 key objectives that are comprised of our initiative. Our OBM Employees Training and Development Program was designed to help us to effectively perform our jobs by arming our employees with the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed, coupled with achieving our ultimate goal to improve customer service and service delivery. OBM believes that by strengthening our workforce, we foster a team environment to enhance the quality of our team's performance. Our first key objective, increase knowledge about general aspects of facilities and project management functions across the board, and also build and strengthen skill sets in all specialized areas. And these two somewhat go together. One example was when we provided training for 50 of our employees, and that was to obtain the Facilities Management Professional Certification, FMP, through IFMA, the International Facility Management Association program. And this was about a 3-week, 4-week course, and it provided additional knowledge in their skills and in their jobs. The third initiative, empower employees to apply knowledge gained through the training program to make suggestions and changes to current business processes, making workloads more efficient. And we were able to provide this training that was geared to their current or their new building operational areas and set a platform. And what it did is it provided additional information that when they came to management with the problem, they were also provided knowledge and skills where they were also able to have the recommendation as far as how to fix the problem. And our fourth key objective was encouraging employees to fulfill and expand their potential through education. And I think a lot of our employees were a little hesitant about, doing this training and some of the other initiatives that we have been working with them. And I think once they were able to go to that initial training, and then it kind of empowered them to want to be able to take other training, such as in the contract COTAR, going from a level 1 to a level 2, and so forth. In the facilities management field, we recognize the importance of our employees maintaining a high level of competence and being able to respond to the demands of the changing circumstances using new and innovative approaches. The conclusion, after conducting an assessment of our organization, we determined that our staff was at different levels in terms of their skill sets and job knowledge. So to provide the best service to our customers, we put in place a training program and development that would afford our employees the opportunity to increase their job knowledge and their education. And with that, I'll open Annie. I'm going to hand it over to you, and Annie will be speaking to how we got there.
My name is Annie Greaves. I am the team leader for the administrative staff in OBM. Here you see a timeline of the evolution of our Office of Buildings Management Employee Training and Development Program. Our approach seeks to bridge educational and knowledge gaps while allowing employees to achieve the national accepted level of competencies set forth by the 2010 Federal Building Personnel Training Act. And I always goof this one up, FBPTA, if any of you have seen that before. And this also goes in line with one of our agency's strategic goals to deliver innovative quality services. The more knowledgeable our staff is, the better we can provide high quality services that our customers deserve. As part of our initiative, in November 2015, we began updating our position descriptions to go to a more center-focused and specific description for each of the occupations. Many of our PDs were outdated, and by outdated, they were created in the 1970s, 80s, so we all know technology has changed, our methods have changed. So by going in a direction to reflect the current responsibilities, we could also address the level of training necessary to perform their job functions. Revising the PDs ensures a living document that reflects the scope and size of current job responsibilities and requirements and the training curriculum suitable for those job functions based on the complexity of the work. Our main goal was to create different levels of responsibility, knowledge, complexities, supervision, and impact for each employee within their occupation, as well as how that job description touches the other pieces of the organization. Examples of that would be recruiting, succession planning, training, and legal compliance. We were able to look at consistencies across several departments to compare similar jobs to set up consistent wording and responsibility levels. We updated approximately 65 PDs between November 2015 and March of 2016. Once all PDs and occupations were standardized, we identified specific training needs for the particular functions. Based on training needs, we developed a training plan for each occupation and a standard course curriculum for all employees. Employee training was broken down into two parts. Standardized courses for all employees, such as facilities management professional certification, as Sandy mentioned, contracting officers representative certification, and customer service training. And the second was specialized training for our building maintenance occupations, such as lockout, tagout procedures, confined space procedures, and so on. This process started in February 2016. As building systems evolve, we continue to look for courses that equip our employees with knowledge about state-of-the-art facilities management and innovative ways to deliver high-quality customer service. The FBPTA, as I referenced earlier, establishes national core competency levels for most federal building professionals, with the exception of wage-grade employees. To ensure the Act was a requirement for SSA, we asked our agency's Office of General Counsel to review. We then collaborated with the General Services Administration in April 2016 to develop the national core competencies for wage grade employees for all employees across the federal government. We completed our partnership with GSA in 2017, and the result of this coordination gave agencies government-wide the core competencies for wage grade employees in the buildings trades. Once this was completed, we had our Office of Labor Management and Employee Relations review the Act and competencies and its effect on the applicable union contracts. Once this review was completed, we met with the unions to discuss buy-in and to formulate a plan to proceed with compliance. One of the most important aspects of OBM's employee training and development program was ensuring we promote the importance of continuing education. In the facilities management field, information and processes are constantly evolving. Examples include updates and changes to building and electrical codes, evolution of mechanical systems to meet energy efficiency goals, and upgraded software for architectural design. It is critical that our employees' knowledge base continues to stay on par with the changes that occur in our profession. Having core competency and specialized training requirements, reinforce an employee's PDs and performance plans, empowers employees to expand their education. SSA promotes continuing education so that our employees are equipped with the knowledge necessary to perform their jobs, and we are able to reach that through in-house courses and online sessions, through SSA's Office of Learning, and external sources such as Accelerate FM, GSA's online resource that enables employees to conduct self-assessments, helps employees to create individual development plans, and provides links to continuing education. Continuous training also includes employees receiving periodicals and newsletters from industry-leading professional organizations such as the International Facility Management Association, as well as attending trade shows offered by Building Operation Management's National Facilities Management and Technology Conference. Now I'll turn it over to Claude, who will talk about how we achieve the results.
Hello, I'm Claude McComb, obviously with Social Security also. So could employee training and development resolve the performance issue or challenge? As everybody already said, you know, building management is that little unknown thing that people really don't look at. You don't need building management until you're hot or you're cold or there's a problem. As long as the lights work in the morning and you can get in your office, you really don't care how you got there and how it evolved to make your comfort. And being federal employees, our customer is federal employees, Social Security employees, and we all know how we are. So with that said, I'm going to get into the weeds here a little bit, and I'm probably going to repeat myself on some of the things that were touched by my colleagues, but the main thing is we reviewed Office of Building Management employees' training records as part of the PDs, and we realized that our employees were not managing their own personal development training. And that's very critical when it comes to facilities management because they are your electricians, they are your plumbers, your steam fit fighters. When an accident happens, they die. So their employee development is very important to us. So the agency, Social Security, they have lots of courses, like I'm sure most of your agencies do. But their core competencies are wide for the agency in customer service or whatever your agency does. So there was nothing specialized specifically for facilities management. So in addition, there was no incentives for our employees to continue their education in their respective fields. And we have a lot of disciplines. So we met with Office of Human Resources, and we were trying to develop some kind of career tool, and it just wasn't working because, again, they're looking at the whole agency-wide and not honing down on us. They have great programs such as the Branch Out program. You know, this is a program that allows employees to take assignments and other components to gain exposure to other aspects of the agencies. And there's also the Career Opportunity Training Agreement program that allows employees to move into different career fields with required training and on-the-job development that prepares employees to function effectively in the new position. I'm sorry. So while our employees have the opportunity to participate in these programs, they don't focus on developing skills, the core competencies, and job knowledge required to achieve success as a facilities manager. And that's the ultimate goal for succession. Instead, most facility professionals learn various aspects of building management through mentoring and on-the-job training. However, there's a problem with that. Mentoring and on-the-job training do not always develop required competencies. You know, the trainer or the mentor has their own way of doing things. It doesn't ensure that the future work performance is consistent. They have their own interpretation of agency processes and building management practices. Another issue we encountered is that the courses offered through our HR department were just general in nature, as I explained. These courses didn't focus on the continuing development in building management functions that reside within our own organization. To better serve our customers and empower our employees, we realized that it was critical for the Office of Building Management to develop its own training program, geared specifically towards the functions within our organization so that those employees could maintain a career within the Office of Building Management and Social Security, career succession. So we developed a program, and the initiative is basically to improve our organization's performance. The main goal was to provide training opportunities that met each individual's strength and weakness, thereby bridging knowledge gaps, enhancing education of employees, and establishing a consistency in the service provided by our employees. So this provided the importance of developing the program. We realized we had an issue. So we had to look at operations and maintenance. We had to look at finance and budget. We had to look at leadership, sustainability, as well as project and space management across the board. So we determined that if we provided employees trainings in these subject areas, it would improve our business processes by ensuring consistency in how we could provide services, as well as providing employees with a more in-depth knowledge and understanding of the building management function. So the training process. So how do we go about designing the training process? Well, again, after we reviewed all the employees, we discovered there was room for improvement. There always is, right? But unfortunately for us, it was across the board in all divisions. So we tried to classify areas that we could enhance into two groups. The first being the core competencies required for all of our staff, regardless of their job function. And then the second one was specialized skills that were job specific. So we designed our training program following a three-pronged approach. The first one, ensure employees process core knowledge and skills required for the divisions and their workloads, that the job training was specific, and that there was a continuing educational professional growth aspect. We looked for core competencies in facilities management, so we went out looking for a training program that would give us a basic core competency for all of our employees. And we found the International Facility Management Accreditation Program, which Sandy touched on, IFMA. Now, why did we go with them? Well, they're the world's largest and most widely recognized international association for facilities management professionals. The goal for them is to strengthen skills through training and a credentialing program. So we selected them, and specifically their Facilities Management Professional Accreditation Program, which is a big investment. We chose it because it gave us the core competencies I talked about that we were looking for across the board. The first one was operations and maintenance. You know, that's the primary role for facilities managers. It's to manage and oversee the operation of a facility. And to effectively manage a building, facility managers must have a working knowledge of building systems, structures, we're talking about interior and exterior, and the grounds. These areas are key for a facility and all of its required systems to function effectively, safely, and securely. And in a manner that's consistent with existing regulations and standards. Effectively, O&M of facilities is a complex responsibility in today's environment. It's just like Sandy said, you know, we're kind of like geeks when we walk into a building. We're looking at walls, we're looking at ceilings, we're looking at floors, we're looking at what's on the wall, how is it not marked and scarred. So, you know, I say that because it is a big deal, maintenance and operations. The second thing is project management. You know, facilities managers make use of all aspects of project management. You know, people don't think about that when they think of building management. They are in the beginning of the planning, the scoping, the scheduling. They end with evaluating the success of the project, the contractor. They're involved in the project planning. You know, that's a core skill set in facilities management. And it's particularly important because of the wide range of projects assigned to facilities management. You know, the need to keep buildings of various age operational, have a lot of duration and financial risk. Then there's the finance and business aspect. You know, facilities managers manage and oversee high-value assets that represent significant financial investment in technology, structures, and grounds. Facility managers are typically responsible for the budget and oversight of operations and maintenance, as well as the budget oversight of various contracts and size and scope, from construction to renovations of full buildings. So without knowing how to deal with finance and the business of finance, you're doomed to failure. And then last was leadership and strategy. Why does an electrician need leadership and strategy? Well, to be effective, they must develop strategies to carry out major incentives by influencing decisions and the attitudes of our customers who occupy the buildings. Effective strategies require that facilities managers are able to integrate people, places, processes, and technologies to achieve the agency's various missions. They must also be able to align facility portfolio with the entire organization's mission and available resources to be innovative in order to move forward with their staff and process the response to ever-changing requirements. So with a base core competency created, we then looked at how can we do specialized training for specific staff. While we were going through this whole process, we uncovered the Federal Building Personnel Training Act. So basically, to make a long story short, GSA was tasked with identifying technical competencies required for federal personnel performing building operations, maintenance, energy management, safety, design functions in federal buildings. Now, all of you are federal employees and agencies. Have you ever heard of this act? Some of you have, some of you haven't. And it's from 2010. Okay. So, GSA looked at the technical competencies specifically geared towards the GS pay scale. You know, they looked at degree professionals, your energy managers, your engineers, things of that aspect. Safety, sustainability, things of that nature. But what they didn't do is they didn't look at the building managers. They didn't look at the wage grade workers, your electricians, carpenters, and plumbers. So upon reviewing the act, we discovered that there was a lack of competency in that area. So we worked directly with GSA to create those competencies. And the main reason that we did that as an agency is because succession planning. Those employees are the most favorable candidates for us. They have institutional knowledge that none of us can even imagine. But the problem is, how do you get them to that GS pay scale? That's why we worked on those core competencies. And we thought it was important for GSA to realize that. So we partnered with GSA, and as Ann brought up, we were able to establish with GSA core competencies nationally for all federal agencies in the wage grade arena. But not only that, the more important thing is that created that chain of events that Ann talked about, making sure that the act was legal, it applied to our agency, talking to the unions, making sure labor relations were on board. It started a whole chain of events that was a slow-moving ship, really it was. So as part of the last part of the design training process was continuing education and growth. We realized that any effective training program must have a continuing education component to keep employees on par with industry changes, but also keep them aspect in various occupations where they're infrequently exposed. To help us with that, again, partnering with GSA, we use Accelerate FM. And Accelerate FM is an online tool that is just unbelievable for facilities management. And I say that because it gives the staff an opportunity to perform a self-assessment. Once they do that self-assessment, it goes to their supervisor to concur or deny, and then it spits out paid and free training from other government agencies. Not only that, from a management perspective, it shows where you're lacking in competencies within the organization down to the first-line supervisor field. So that's a really strong tool for supervisors and managers to argue for training dollars for training. screen went black, I apologize. The screen went black. I apologize. Well, it looks like it went off. So I'll just go ahead and continue. How does the initiative link to our mission? All right. As you were told, our mission statement is to provide quality and timely customer-focused service. So first, our #1 commitment is to provide the highest quality customer service to our fellow SSA employees. The workforce is better equipped to deliver exceptional customer service in their profession when they are properly trained. Our staff took the knowledge they learned from the various training programs that we provided them and applied this information directly to create many innovative approaches and improve efficiencies within our building and facility management process. So as defined in our mission statement, our staff became engaged and found ways to improve productivity, quality, and teamwork. These initiatives ensured that the Office of Building Management team and buildings are operating as effectively as possible. So the Division of Building Management created the Building Manager's Handbook. This handbook was developed because it now standardized building managers' processes. The handbook covers areas on how to handle building modification requests, which are processes used for changing facilities issues, ranging from moving electrical outlet to replacing a roof. Also, the book teaches them how to address service tickets. You might think addressing a service ticket is not a big deal, but when you put in a service ticket, that's important to you. So how we approach your request dictates your response to facilities management, hence that 54 to 81% increase in 1 year. Also how to respond to emergencies. You know, a bathroom flooding is an emergency. You know, if you don't stop that flood, it can go to the next floor. It can cost the agency lots of money, damage, shutting down. Also, the handbook, which was key, is a learning tool for new employees that come on board as building managers. It detailed, you know, as we talked about the CODIS branch, some employees come in through that means. And like I said previously, it was just on-the-job training that resulted in inconsistent practices that were taught to entry-level building managers. The second thing was the Division of Delegated Programs created the Project Management Handbook. Similar to the Building Manager Handbook, this handbook provides a global view. As Kelly explained, we have buildings across the country. So it created a global view for the agency on how to manage a project portfolio and how to manage processes, ensuring consistency in making purchases related to, you know, a project, assessing the scope of a project, you know, how we do estimates, how we complete necessary forms related to the project, how to work effectively with our partner GSA and those points of contacts, along with you know, a montage of relevant topics. They also helped create the 5-year asset management program. And through the knowledge our staff obtained through the training program, it gave them the skills, what we talked about with budget and finance and those issues, leadership, it gave them the skills to be able to manage correctly $150 million potential projects yearly. I mean, we're talking a lot of money. And we didn't have a core competency across the board. Additionally, they were able to create this 5-year program to determine the operational and maintenance needs over the next 5 years, and currently they're working on a 10-year plan. So this initiative allows us to identify projects that may be similar in nature and to consolidate and prioritize them. This obviously ensures that the most important projects are taken care of first and that we are not duplicating efforts. The Division of Mechanical Maintenance helped create and improve service ticket process. You know, our employees teamed up with SSA's Office of Information Management and to improve the service ticket process, the Tririga that Sandy was talking about, because originally we used a SharePoint type of process that SSA created so that customers could put in tickets. And because of that, we went to a computerized facilities management software system that is more user-friendly. It's state-of-the-art. This process is our customers can input their requests directly, such as obviously repairs, lighting issues, pest control. In addition, the results of the new software system does project tracking. It also does facility asset management. And lastly, as stated under the discussion of specialized training programs, our staff was instrumental in assisting GSA, as I said, with the building maintenance profiles. The training program and development program was to equip our employees with the knowledge, skills, and abilities to perform effectively their jobs with the ultimate goal of improving customer satisfaction. Kelly talked about the percentages. I mean, 27% increase because of this program and letting the employees be engaged was a result that far exceeded our expectations. And it directly aligns to our organization's mission to provide quality and timely customer service in order to ensure that our SSA employees can deliver superior Social Security services that meet the changing needs of the public. As we continue to roll out training throughout the organization using the curriculum established, we're proud to report that, as Sandy said, 40 employees have gone through FMP at a substantial cost to the agency. But I've already explained all the payback we received from that. You know, that exam alone covers 11 facility management competencies. And now with these employees having that solid foundation of knowledge, we have been able to increase our effectiveness, as I said, in many aspects. You know, our enhanced teamwork was just shocking. You know, when employees from across different disciplines within the organization attend core competency training courses together, a camaraderie started among the staff. And, you know, more importantly, our staffs were better, they got a better understanding of what the organization as a whole does. That interaction made them have new insight on how we do things. You know, it's when you're a building manager, you're really not tuned in on the project management stuff, and vice versa. So it was you know, all that information that they got and working together came up with so many, you know, why do we do this, and do you guys know when you do that how it affects us? So that engagement was just unbelievable, and it gave them empowerment, you know, and to create that innovation. You know, it made them use that term, think outside of the box. Instead of doing the same things the way they've always done, they started with, you know, they were able to get new tools and skills through the core competencies that made them say, you know, why are we doing it this way? And who do I need to talk to make change this process? So those improvements, as the ones I previously mentioned, were key. And that 5-year asset plan was a tipping point for us. So in OBM, building management, teamwork and organizational information sharing is critical when it comes to achieving our success. It's really not a choice for our team to work as a team. It's part of our culture. Our teams work towards a common goal, sharing knowledge amongst all team members. For example, during a construction project, our project manager and building manager must work together to define the scope of the project. They then work together with the contractor and our partners at GSA to ensure the successful completion of the project. During the development of the project plan, our energy managers work with our project managers to ensure and incorporate energy efficient elements into the plan. Once finalized, our project managers work with our building maintenance staff, you know, our carpenters, electricians, to execute the project and create the project. So as you can see, this involves numerous staff from different divisions within OBM that weren't all meshed together with engagement prior to us starting this initiative. In the end, we believe that our training program created employee engagement, which caused great improvement within the organization in productivity, teamwork, and the quality of our product. So with that said, do we have any questions? I know I got in the weeds, so I apologize. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rosalind, and I work for Facility Services Division for the Pentagon.
Okay.
Right now, we're in the process of redoing our PDs, literally right now. So you guys have created a wheel that, oh, first question, can I get a copy of your presentation, please?
Sure.
And we are in that position of we're trying to get the training that the people need. I came in 3 years ago. The problem is not funding. They have money. They give back, before I got there, $500,000 of unused funds because they're not getting the training. I don't have training plans. So I come in, I'm not an electrician or a plumber or a maintenance worker. I have to depend on the supervisors or someone to tell me what their people need, and it's ad hoc. Some people get it. We do have people going to get their facility manager's certification, but a handful here and there. So I would like to get a better idea of your game plan, how you made this work. What did you do? So definitely want to talk about it.
So let me kind of highlight that. So it was kind of the core competencies for our craftsmen, as Claude alluded to. We didn't have a core competency. So I kind of went to grassroots. My background is Air Force. And we had a career training program that we were responsible throughout our career. So in essence, we had specific skill set trades in the Air Force and civil engineering that we were required to, train. So what I actually had Claude do was go back to a lot of the Air Force career education and training plans and pull some of those core competencies, because a building is a building.
Right.
You're going to have the same core competencies in those buildings. So I said, hey, don't reinvent the wheel. Let's go back and let's look at previous stuff that other people have utilized and been successful. So I said, hey, Claude, go look at the CFETPs. Air Force has a bunch of them in CD. We had HVAC, we had plumbers, we had electricians, and we pulled a lot of those core competencies out of that. And that drove the change in a lot of the PDs, and putting those competencies in the PDs provide the training and the justification for the training.
Additionally, we had to work with the local community college. They have programs, to get your apprenticeship program. But then when we looked at those programs, we said, okay, we already have apprentice level employees. How do we get them to the next level to be the work leader? And currently we're working with the University of Penn that has a program that they use for the state of Pennsylvania, geared similar to what we're trying to do, so we're fine-tuning their program. So yeah, we feel your pain when it comes to those wage grade workers. You can do the lockout, tag out, arc flash protection, those cookie cutter things, but that doesn't help with succession. That doesn't make them the next work leader or the next supervisor. It's that leadership, that budget and finance. We found that when we did the FMP with those wage grade employees, because we included them at the supervisory and lead level, a light turned on in their eyes, and they said, wow, I can really be a GS employee. Wow, I didn't know that money was an aspect. I just put in a requisition for whatever I want and it shows up. It makes a light turn on in some employees. And that's critical for us because, as we said, we pull from that pool of employees for succession into the GS pay scale.
And so that 2010 FBPTA,
Yes.
where can I find that?
Just type in exactly
Is
that.
that?
Yeah. And as I said, we're working and partnering still with GSA to fine-tune the core competencies more geared towards the wage grade employees. They were trying to fit one size fits all. And it's worked. We were able to get competencies for the wage grade employees, but we want to fine-tune that with them.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Keisha and I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs Office of Inspector General. My question is, do you guys require your employees to have a certain amount of continuing professional education credits per fiscal year?
No, we're not mandated.
We
try to encourage the employees to be self-motivated and push those.
Okay.
But the key for us was, that Federal Building Training Act, because that establishes the core competencies for federal employees that touch a building. So using that as a tool, that's why we didn't get into the weeds about how we had to go with the Office of General Counsel to look at the act and make sure that it fell under us, because we're not GSA. Or like VA, you own your own properties. We have delegated properties that are given back to us.
Well, yeah, I asked because I work more with auditors that do performance auditing and management analysts, and they're required by Yellow Book to have a certain amount of CPEs per 2-year cycle. So I was wondering if you guys know about doing anything like that too.
That is very time.
The only thing we would leverage would be anything that might be like an executive order, like 2010, where we knew that our employees would have to take those certain building operations projects because I believe we did even speak with the union and see if that was something that was doable, you know, especially since most of the wage grade are in, you know, under the bargaining agreement. So that was kind of our leverage to, yes, you need to do this. Just like with the contracting officers type of COTAR 1. You know, we actually have addressed where the building managers must have a COTAR 1, and that's because each of the building managers, we have one separate for each building, and each of them handles that piece of the custodial contract. So that they all have it, because our progression and division of building operations is you start out as a building manager, then you make your way as a COTAR, and then you do maintenance repair type work, and then you graduate over to working with projects again in GSA. So it's kind of
Good morning, I'm Sue Shoemate with the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. You had mentioned a tool, I believe it was Accelerate FM, that maps competencies to training, kind of global training. Is that an off-the-shelf tool? Did you develop that? Can you say a little bit more about that tool?
GSA developed that tool, and it's available for federal employees and contractors. And again, within that tool, it's a simple tool. You log in, you pick your agency. If your agency has not been involved with them in developing the tool, you could pick a generic job title, and then it will spit out a competency level that you must have to be in that job. And again, you fill it out, your self-assessment, it goes to your supervisor, they concur, deny, and it basically gives you an IDP. Some of it free through other agencies like the VA or whatever, and some of it paid like FMP and BOMI, and it's, you know, the list goes on and on.
Is that for the white collar job?
That's for all now.
That's for blue collar?
Yes, that's for all of them now.
So you could just go on the GSA website and type in Accelerate
Yes.
SF?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Emily, and I'm from the Federal Aviation Administration. I understand from what you said, you measured the improvements in performance using your customer satisfaction surveys. What kind of metrics did you use to measure employee engagement? Were you using the venue score, specific items, the employee engagement index, or some other metric?
So what we did with the customer service feedback, we had it broken down and where people provided feedback based on some of the things that might have came up in our last survey that went out. Critical items like the HVAC, because at that time when that survey went out, we were a little bit lower, I guess you could say. So there were HVAC type questions that went out to our SSA employees. There were electrical questions. We had conference room questions. And that was because, again, based on the previous feedback that we got, it was kind of low. And also, I believe, customer service also that the building managers provide.
Right, but how did you measure the employee engagement?
Well, we didn't use a matrix to do that.
Okay.
What happened is they came to us and they went to their managers and said, hey, I think we should have a handbook. You know, we have teams, obviously, under each division. And they talk amongst each other and they say, hey, why don't we have a handbook? Or a new project person will come on board and they'll say, well, what forms do I need to do an OAG contract, and what forms do I need to do a GSA contract? Are RWAs required? It's the same. So because of all that training that we gave them, they were able to say, hey, there needs to be better processes versus the old way of I keep things my way and I do things my way. So that's where we were able to see that change. And that's what affected customer service response.
Are you welcome to stay back?
Hi, good morning. My name is Amanda Moore, and I'm with the Federal Aviation Administration. I was wondering if you could speak to how you got leadership support, because it definitely sounds like there may have been some reallocation of resources that was necessary to support this effort. And obviously, it sounds like there's been a good ROI, but how do you get that additional investment from your leadership and those in authority?
So I can say on my part, it was very challenging, but it was really having the support and the buy-in and trying to explain to them that we do great stuff and showcasing exactly what we do. And a lot of people take it for consideration when they walk in, the lights are on, the door's open. And when that doesn't happen, we're always there to fix it. And we had some series of events happen, And it was able to showcase those events and saying, this is why I need the support. And this helps us achieve what we need to do. And it just, through time, through culture transformation, a lot of, drive and push and say, hey, I really need, kind of the thorn in the side. And it finally gave in, and we reaped tremendous rewards from it.
In addition, the act was critical because once, it was reviewed by OAG and they said, yes, it's mandatory.
So pushed us,
That pushed
being
us.
able to get the funding, that policy being out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next presentation will be made by the National Geospatial-Intelligence College, Aaron Dolmer, David Miller, Sean Reardon, and Cheryl Waters. This team will give us insights into how their agency provides for the unique training needs of a dispersed workforce. Please join me in welcoming them.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Dave Miller. As she said, we're here from the National Geospatial-Intelligence College, and specifically from the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency, or NGA. I've got three colleagues with me this morning. You've already heard their names. This is Sean Reardon, Cheryl Waters, and Aaron Dolmer. We are here, well, the slide implies what we're going to talk about here is the National Geospatial-Intelligence College, or NGC. But really, the official title of our program this morning is Employee Development: How to Meet the Unique Needs of Your Workforce. So it's in your programs, and that's the correct title: How to Meet the Needs of Your Workforce. With that in mind, we've got a pretty simple agenda in store for you here. First of all, we thought it was probably important just to talk a little bit about what NGA is, or the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. Once again, NGA is not the National Gallery of Art. You see other NGA, so in case you're confused by that. So we'll talk just briefly about what NGA is, a little bit about our product, and then a little bit about the organization that we're representing, the National Geospatial-Intelligence College. From there, we'll move in, and that'll only take about 10 minutes. From there, we'll move into our best practices. And what we're going to emphasize this morning are the things that were emphasized in the Deming Award for 2017 that we were the recipients of. So we'll talk about those things. And then we want to leave about 20 minutes after this is all done so that we can have some discussion, some question and answers, some sharing of information. So I think that's probably one of the biggest benefits of a forum like this, so we want to make sure that we leave time for that. We're going to start with a very short video. It's literally 1 minute long. It's an overview that's really designed just to give you an insight into what NGA is. A lot of people have no idea. We run into this all the time whenever we step outside of the intelligence community. People say, what is NGA anyway? So again, this will give you just a brief introduction to that. I'll go ahead and roll that video. Great, so that gives you just a brief introduction to some of the key mission sets that we're talking about whenever we mention the NGA. One of the things that was not in there is the idea of GeoInt. So GeoInt is really the main product that the agency produces, and it's the element that really ties together all of the things that you just saw on the slides, all of those missions that the NGA carries out. So the question, of course, is what is GeoInt? And the slide just sort of animated itself, but the question is, what is GeoInt? And as you'll see here, it's really the combination or the overlaying of geospatial data, or geography, and intelligence, right? It's where we bring those two things together. So the idea here is that we will start with something that is very sort of basic, sort of foundational data. So you might think about, for example, coordinates. Everybody understands what coordinates are, or elevation data. So this is the baseline that we start with. A lot of that is coming from imagery or coming from similar sources, but on top of that, we layer on different types of information. So for example, we're talking right now a lot about North Korea. So we'll layer in order of battle that looks at North Korean missiles onto the geographic sort of baseline. And what that allows us to do, is to understand in a much broader picture, a much more comprehensive picture of what's going on in the world, right? So we're not only looking at a specific location, we're understanding why that specific location is important, how it relates to other locations. Again, there's a lot of different things that go into that, and that sort of explanation in itself implies that there's a lot of complication or a lot of complexity involved in the work that we do. To do that, we have a very specialized workforce, and of course this is where the college comes into play. We currently have about 14,500, this is a round number, but 14,500 personnel. About 65% of those are full-time military personnel, full-time civilian employees. We do have a few active duty military as well, and we have contractors as well mixed in there too. What you're seeing here then on the right side of the slide are the specialties that actually enable the missions that we talked about. And of course, that's where the college comes into play. This is where those of us sitting up on the platform this morning, we are here to make sure that we provide the training that we need to enable all of those functions. Okay, I mentioned a little bit or implied that we have a global reach, that we're not just talking about what happens within the walls of the NGA here in the local area. Most of our workforce is here in the capital region, most of it in Springfield, but we have a large contingent in St. Louis, Missouri as well. We also have about 100 locations around the country, and we have about 40 locations around the world in foreign partner nations. This gives you kind of a sense of some of our reach. Again, we're not talking about strictly what happens here in the capital region, but here are 28 different locations. You'll see here these are combat commands, departments, agencies, services, and so on. So again, a broad reach. Okay, so that's kind of the context for where the college exists. So what is the college? What does the college do? Like any organization, of course, we have a vision and a mission. I won't belabor that. You guys can look at that on the slide. The one thing that I will point out here, though, is that we serve the GON enterprise. So again, we're back to that idea that this is a mission that goes beyond what happens just within the walls of the agency. But again, there's global implications for this. To do that work, we have about 290 people that we consider faculty members. That includes both full-time and adjunct instructors. It includes instructional systems designers, or ISDs. We have a fairly significant contingent of ISDs in our organization. It includes educational technologists. It includes training and education specialists. A wide variety of people come together to make this happen. You can see we have about 1,750 courses. About 200 of those are things that we have developed and owned internally to meet a niche need. The remainder are things that we hire in, that we make available to people. A variety of different options there. We can talk about that more as we get into this presentation. Okay, our programs are divided up into two broad categories. First of all, GEO and analytic learning and workforce professionalization. GEO and analytic learning is kind of what it sounds like. It is teaching our analysts to be analysts, back to those specialties that we talked about on the slide. This is where we teach them, and this is the piece that really emphasizes what happens across the globe. We also have workforce professionalization. You can see some of the things that are included there. It's things like foreign languages would fall into that category, but really our emphasis in that area is on leadership. And therefore, not surprisingly, these are the things that we do, that we emphasize the internal needs of the agency. So again, it's a mix of things. Okay, so now that is sort of the context, right? My job this morning was just to sort of set the context, give you an idea of where the things that we'll talk about fit in. What is the context for all of that? Like any agency, we have a lot of challenges that are coming our way, and one of the most recent is the constant demand, sort of an exploding demand, really, for geospatial information. Geospatial services of all kinds were sort of coming at us from all different directions. Our leadership wisely figured out, wisely determined early on that there's no way that we can accomplish what we need to accomplish by ourselves. We're not a one-man show. And so we needed to reach out to other resources, right? To government, to industry, to academia, to our foreign partners. And in general, the plan to do that was to sort of broaden our reach and then to make ourselves more accessible, make it easier to access our data, make that more available to everybody out there. That plan was sort of broken down into subparts, and the subparts is what we want to talk about today, the parts that we were involved in. Again, these are our best practices that we'll share with you. So I'm going to turn it over to the three people that are sitting here at the table now, and they'll talk about how we went about improving availability through adjunct instructors. Erin will talk about that, our adjunct instructor program. Providing accessibility and discoverability through web-based training. Sean will talk about that. And then I'll turn it over to Cheryl to talk about how we sort of establish shared standards throughout the geo community and the value that that brings. Okay. And I think Erin's up first. Thanks,
I don't know if you were clapping for me to come up here.
Finally, right?
Let's go for the first one. But thanks everybody, thanks Dave. My name's Aaron Dulmer. I'm the team lead for the faculty development team for the National Geospatial-Intelligence College. I have a very specific function at the college. A lot of people focus on geospatial intelligence training or leadership or professional development training. My training is focused on the development of the faculty. More specifically the faculty, meaning the instructors. So the folks that are going out there and providing all of this training. So we're going to cover some of those aspects over the next 2 slides. So David mentioned, we have a range of courses out there all around the globe, 40 different locations all around the world. People come to us for geospatial intelligence training because we are the National Geospatial-Intelligence Agency. So what do they want? They want our mobile training teams to come to their sites. They want our instructors to train them on site on geospatial intelligence, so whatever the topic may be. So what that requires is our instructor corps. As Dave mentioned before, we get a lot of requests in. We get between 500 to 600 requests in annually for trainings, and that's just for our mobile training teams, not training necessarily happening at our main sites. And we only have, we're only able to meet about half those because of the size of our resources. So we have the numbers for FY 16 and 17 on the slide, but we usually sit at about 100, between 90 and 100, depending on where it builds out. For full-time instructor staff, we're sitting at about 90 right now, and then we also have an adjunct instructor staff, which I'll talk about here in a second. So our full-time instructor staff, that's anybody assigned to the college. So somebody that comes to work for NGC specifically for one role, to be an instructor. Adjunct instructor staff, this is somebody that's not part of the college. They could be maybe part of the college, but in a different role. Like myself, I'm considered an adjunct instructor because I'm not a full-time instructor. But it could be somebody anywhere within NGA. It could be somebody from a different intelligence agency, a different agency in general, a branch of military service. Just somebody that wants to come be part of NGC, but not as a full-time role. So that's where our adjunct instructor staff comes in. And we usually sit at about 104 adjunct instructor staff. So by doing that, we're able to double the size of our instructor corps. That doesn't double our capability, because again, our adjunct instructors are part-time, but it still allows us to go around the world and provide more training. Getting back to resources, money's always an issue. Sure, maybe we have the instructors to do it, but we can't get out to the UK to train people all the time. So what we do is we develop adjunct instructors at that site, so when training is requested, we don't even have to go there. Our adjunct instructors, they're certified, they're qualified, they can teach our material on our behalf. Those students can sit in the classroom and get the same level of instruction they would if it was a full-time instructor, and they receive the same credit as if NGA were to come out there and provide that training. So our adjunct instructors are a big part of our workforce when we start looking at getting out there and conducting these mobile training teams. Now one thing I want to talk about, is going to be on the next slide, and partially on this slide, is our certification and our qualification process. So whether you're a full-time instructor, so whether you're there full-time or whether you're an adjunct and you just want to part-time support us, we have the same certification and qualification criteria. So we want the same standards. We want the same standards whether they're going out with a full-time instructor staff on how they facilitate the subject matter expertise on what they're delivering, or whether they're an adjunct instructor. So because of that, we do have the same standards for both. I know there are some organizations out there, some agencies that kind of separate those, and they say, well, if you're a full-time instructor, you have to do all of these things. If you're a part-time instructor, you could just do these things. We have across-the-board same certification and qualification standards. Does anybody have any questions so far on our full-time instructor staff or adjunct instructor staff? No questions? Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about our certification and qualification program. So when I talk about certification, what I'm talking about is the facilitation skills. So can somebody get up in front of the class and effectively communicate to that class, effectively engage that class, and get that information out to the students? When we talk about qualification, we're looking at the subject matter expertise. So do they have the knowledge and the subject matter expertise to teach the content that we provided for them? So that's why we have that two-part process. Certification, facilitation skills, qualification is going to be subject matter expertise. When we certify somebody, they come to NGA, they say, I want to be an instructor, whether it's full-time or whether it's an adjunct. We send them to a 5-day course. We call it our Fundamentals of Instructional Facilitation course. What that does is that lays the groundwork of everything they're going to need to know in order to effectively facilitate classes. Very student-centered. We have a very student-centered approach on all the classes we deliver. So we don't want kind of like this type of forum where we're standing up here lecturing the whole time. We want that engagement from the students. We want all that student engagement. We want to share those experiences, get the instructor to share experiences, make it relatable, clarification support, all the different things that comes with involving the audience. And then for qualification, they go off to the different branch or course manager that they're supporting. Typically we have a 3-phased approach. They take the class as a student, they co-teach the class on their own, and then they co-teach the class, and then they teach the class on their own in front of a qualified instructor. They do all 3 of those things. They do it correctly using the instructor qualification form that we have, and they can get signed off for qualification. So both that certification and qualification equal instructor status when it comes to NGC. Now we do have some sustainment requirements, and there's a couple big ones in here that I want to mention because I feel like they're important to our program. Sustainment requirements for full-time instructors. So all of our initial certification and qualification, the same. Adjunct instructor or full-time. Now if you're a full-time instructor, we have sustainment requirements that we ask them to do, both annual and biannual requirements. And what we're doing is we're constantly trying to grow our workforce, kind of polishing them at their craft as they're within NGC, so they're not becoming stagnant. We have them take an intermediate class, which is another 5-day class. They have to take that within 2 years of being with the college. They have to attend 4 hours of other type of instructional training throughout the year, and that's typically hosted by us in faculty development. We do the Fundamentals of Instructional Facilitation course I mentioned before, but we also have 12 other main courses in our catalog, and then a range of other topics that we do. So whether somebody wants to know more about the different cognitive theories of learning, facilitating case study, facilitating problem-based learning, dealing with difficult students, maybe working with deaf and hard of hearing students in the classroom, all different topics that we present out to our instructors. We also do assessments on them annually, so we use our instructor observation form to test their facilitation skills, and then we use our instructor qualification form to re-qualify them. And then we also maintain that communication with our instructor corps through monthly newsletters, quarterly reports, letting them know exactly where they stand in the program. Now the last thing I want to mention is our senior instructor program. So has anybody in here ever been part of a program before, maybe military, they have master instructor programs or senior programs? Okay, so we got 2 folks in here, a couple more in the back. Yeah, that guy's in uniform, so I'm sure he's getting across it. A lot of times with these senior programs or these master programs, what happens, I was in the Air Force, so we had the master instructor program, is once I was on the podium for 2,000 hours, I was a master instructor. So I got my master instructor badge and I could walk around and everybody said, there's a master instructor because he was on the podium for 2,000 hours. Problem with that is, what stops that guy from hitting his 2,000 hours? Maybe he wasn't even a good instructor. But now he's walking around with that master instructor badge. Students are seeing him in the classroom and they're saying, this is the guy that mentors the rest of the staff. Because why? Because he was in the classroom for 2,000 hours. So we went a little bit different with our program. We don't have a time requirement to get into the senior instructor program. What we do is we look for consistency in how you're delivering your training. So we have the instructor observation form, which I mentioned before. You can get either a successful on it, an excellent, or an outstanding. We look for that consistency for somebody to be giving an excellent or an outstanding on their observation forms. And then once they're doing that, they show 2 consistent observation forms with an excellent or higher. They can go to their branch chief and they can say, I want to be a senior instructor. And the branch chief knows them best because they work with them regularly. So they endorse that person and they say, yes, you are a mentor. The rest of the instructor staff look up to you. I think this is a good idea. They send them over to us and the faculty development team. We read them into the program, send them back out into their respective work roles. Now what we look for from here is continually giving back to the rest of the instructor corps. So what our senior instructors have to do, they have to conduct formative assessments on other instructors. So they have to sit in on their class, fill out the instructor observation form, and give them that one-on-one feedback. They don't have to share it with us. They're not trying to get them to slip up on anything. But what they're doing is they're just sharing some of their observations. We have them partner with us and co-facilitate learning events, usually 1-hour learning events, on things that they've either identified within the workforce that they could work on, or maybe it's something that they as a senior instructor do really well and they want to share it with everybody else. We have them be part of the Faculty Development Steering Committee. So we're able to bring them in on meetings with leadership, and we're able to say, okay, this is what the instructor corps is saying, pass that information up to leadership, or this is what leadership wants, help us to push that out to the rest of the instructors. So right now we're sitting at about 13 senior instructors, and they're really key in getting us to push that information out to the rest of those 75, 80 instructors, the ones that we need to get on board with some of the changes that we make within the college. So our senior instructor program, I would definitely say, is a big part of it. Outside of that, that's our main aspects of the faculty development program. I mean, there's a lot of other programs that we manage, but I think our adjunct program, our ability to grow adjuncts around the globe, get them to teach our mobile training teams to expand that global reach of GeoInt information, and then also, again, those sustainments, certification, and qualification requirements for our instructor course. Does anybody have any questions on any of those aspects?
Do you have is it you or do you have a full-time person that kind of manages this cadre for you to make sure that the sustainment is actually done? And
yes. So we have, so for my team, her question was, do we have somebody that manages the sustainment efforts and everything else that goes with these type of programs? So I'm the adjunct program manager. So all of the adjuncts, they go through me. We track them in an adjunct instructor database. We're able to track all of their requirements, when they're teaching, when they're certified, when they're qualified, what they're qualified in. So this way, if somebody comes to us, a course manager, and says, I need somebody for a basic geospatial concepts class, and we're able to say, okay, these are all the people, this is where they're located, and we can reach out to them. My team also holds the program management function for the instructor certification and qualification program. So we have a full-time instructor database that we track all of the full-time instructor requirements. Are they meeting their full hours? When do they need to go to the advanced fundamentals course next? When do they need to take the instructor assessment workshops? Different type of sustainment efforts. And then what we do is we compile quarterly reports and send them out to the instructors so that they know what they need to do as well. Does that answer your question?
It does.
No other questions? There's one question you guys are missing. How do I become an adjunct instructor, right? I got you guys all pumped up. Now you want to become an adjunct instructor. I'll support the agency. You contact me in faculty development. So I'll have cards up here. Depending on what agency you work for, what expertise you have, we could always use more people. So we have people with different agencies throughout. The biggest thing with ours is, again, having that experience. We have GeoInt is one of our top priorities, so if you have GeoInt experience. But we also do leadership and supervisory classes that we share as well. 2 questions. We'll go with the left one.
So I wouldn't even think to ask that question if you already have a job. So being an adjunct, how does that work? You can't go to your regular job. You have to go and teach something somewhere.
Right. So when we look at adjuncts from other agencies, there's that level of commitment of being an adjunct. Whether it's coming to Springfield to support a class for 1 day or going out to Germany and supporting a class for 1 or 2 weeks. So there is kind of that agreement we have to have between that person and their supervisor, as well as maybe that agency. Most of the adjuncts we have are with agencies that we support. So of course they're saying, yes, if my people become adjuncts, we can bring more GeoInt training to the agency. But it's not a, so one of the things, our adjunct program, it's a completely volunteer force. There's no extra money involved. They get no time off. There's no type of rewards with it, which is one of the reasons the regular instructors wouldn't like if I said this, but our adjunct ratings are usually higher than our full-time instructor ratings because they're people that are really passionate about teaching. They're in a job right now where it's maybe a desk job. They don't get in front of a class. They don't teach. And they say, I want to be an adjunct, I want to be in front of a class, I'm passionate about it, so that's why they join. We have one more question.
Are the classes in English or the languages?
So we do different languages. We have a foreign language and culture office within the college. But depending on where it goes, some of them we travel with a translator, or some of them we can actually spin up folks that speak that language in that course material. So that way we can deliver it in a different language.
And that's something we've tried to do, is make sure that we're including speakers of other languages as adjuncts so that we can send them out on our behalf.
Yeah, South America is one of our biggest ones. We do a lot of MTTs down in South America, so may involve translators, or again, if we could try to find people that speak that language, then they become an adjunct. They now have the subject matter expertise, they can deliver on that.
We have other people who speak Russian and Ukrainian that are able to travel for us.
Any other questions? In the back. So the question was, what are examples of topics that our adjunct instructors teach? For all of them, I'd have to get you a copy of the program guide that we offer, but most of them are centered around GeoInt training, and we're looking at either imagery analysis, geospatial analysis, something centered around the sensors, or maybe it's just a core concept that's needed for imagery analysis, and then leadership and professional development. Do you guys have any examples of some of our leadership and professional development classes?
So there is supervisory skills applied as an example, and one of my employees who is stationed in England is actually an adjunct for that course, and so he can provide that training to our NGA employees who are out in England or even in Germany within that footprint. And so it varies across the board as far as what we can provide or what people can get certified to teach.
Any other questions? Okay, if you think of any, be around at the end of this.
And there'll also be the panel discussion at the end of this. So.
Yes. Next up, we have Sean.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, I'm Sean Reardon. It's time to get a little excited here. All right, because what you're going to hear about from me is my baby. Okay, I have a 22-year-old son, but I also have on-domain, on-demand. Okay. On demand is something that we did at the college that literally changed the whole way that the agency looked at not only information, but as education in general. It's centered on, we're going away from a teacher-centered, like Aaron was talking about, that one-way communication to interactive. But more important than that, we looked at our customers and said, what do they need? Not what would be cool for me to teach, but what do they need? And not only that, but where do they need it? Okay? Coming from an intelligence agency, we have a tendency, this is known, we have a tendency to keep things like this, okay? But we have customers throughout the world. We have learners that could use help throughout the world. And so this isn't conducive to learning. Okay? So on-demand was an approach that we were allowed to spearhead at the action officer level, and it has three big prongs, okay? That three-legged stool. The first is accessibility. I want you, as a learner, to be able to go onto our website and find whatever you need. Oh, I know, it's a novel concept, but why not be able to search and find exactly what you need? Rather than hiding that information, make it accessible. So not only is it discoverable and accessible, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, it's not just on one domain anymore. We used to put all of our training at the very highest classification, so only those people in a SCIF could get to it. It doesn't make any sense if it's unclassified training, am I right? So we bring it. We now have it on 4 domains, and we'll talk about that in detail in just a couple of seconds. So it's searchable, so I can find it, and when I find it, it may tell me it's not on this system, but at least I know it's there, okay? The most important thing of that first accessibility is captioning. 508 compliance, some of us get a little lazy, okay? That's wrong, because what we are telling our learners is you are not important, okay? We did a transformational effort where we actually hired full-time captioners to sit there, and we are now at a 98% captioning for all of our learning. All of our learning. And whenever you start talking about, you know, 1,700 views on a video, and you've got people that can't see it or can't hear it, we've got problems. So that was a huge goal. We are the highest percentage by 25% in the intelligence community, and because we just made it a conscious effort. It's not rocket science. just start thinking about your learners. And that's the approach of on-demand, or what we call OD squared. All right, second prong of the three-prong school is professional development training. All right, we talked about supervisory skills. Aaron talked about the different courses that go out. If I want to learn, all right, so the big thing now is coding, okay? Everybody's got games and coding, and there's like commercials on every channel about learning how to code, okay? What if I just want to do this for me? What if I just want to learn to code because it sounds kind of cool? What we did was we partnered with Skillsoft. Many of you are familiar with Skillsoft. We partnered with Skillsoft, and we brought their entire portfolio of professional development training to our learners. Okay? Not just what we think they want, but whatever they want. So if they want to take a class in French on their own time, do it. If they want to take a class on dealing with difficult coworkers, they can do it, and it's on. But they can also take it on their business time as well. But making it available where and when they need it. Okay. So that's the first thing, and we'll talk about where all that is in just a second. The video thing was truly transformative. Because what we did was we took a YouTube approach, all right? We already had a substantial number of videos and a full video studio to film videos. Video's cool, everybody likes video. Well, you know what? Sometimes you don't have 8 weeks to wait for somebody to do a full production video. So we established 3 different types of studios. We still got the full service video where they can put you in front of green screen so you can be floating in space like George Clooney in Gravity. But you can also just do a web screen capture with voiceover that you don't necessarily need a lot of help, and we'll train you on how to do it yourself. Within 20 minutes, we can train anybody to do a basic web screen capture. And then we help you edit it, and we help you post it. That's assistant service. If you do it all on your own, it's like, Sean, I do this at home for my YouTube channel. I don't need any help. You go completely self-service. So we've got full, assisted, and self-service studios for our folks. I brought this because I've got the numbers. We've already this year had 50,000 views just since January 1st. We have, in the past 3 years, every year we have doubled the number of videos. Now what's coming next for our videos is just because you got 50,000 views doesn't mean it's good. Maybe it's got a cat dancing or something like that. So, which is not necessarily a bad thing, okay? Because sometimes being entertained while you're learning helps you remember things. But we're also adding like buttons. Okay, we already have a process where if there is something that's actually incorrect that somebody records themselves, we have ways to report it and that kind of thing. But by putting those studios out there, where if you have something that you want to capture, even if it's not required for your job, but you say, you know, I know something, it's important for me to share it, I've got a place to share it. That's also important for our baby boomer wave, okay? I'm a baby boomer, and there's a lot of us that are going to be retiring in the next 10 to 15 years. We need to capture that knowledge. We can put them in a studio, or they can put themselves in a studio and just talk about stories. Okay, so that's the second prong. So first we've got accessibility. Second, we've got learner-centric solutions. Now, this is the one that is way out there, and it's called point of need. The approach that we're going to put the learning where the learners are, where they need it. Okay, not sitting in a skiff, but being able to get to a laptop. So, we went from 1 domain with our learning to 4. And the one that was truly, you would think I was inventing something new. We put our unclassified training, and you ready for this? On the World Wide Web. Oh, say it isn't so. All right. So, but this is interesting because we can't just put it just anywhere, because we still have to control and be able to track. So we went to Blackboard and we said, we want something new. You know, Blackboard is an industry leader. We said, we want something new. We want to put it on the World Wide Web. And I want to put FOUO on the World Wide Web. And that's where the security people, what did they do? Okay, but that's okay because we're testing new waters. So what we've done, we've got worldwide, we've got completely unclassified learning on Blackboard on the World Wide Web. And for the federal government, on what we did for you, what we did is we sponsored Blackboard. And we are in the process of getting them FedRAMP certified so any of you can put FOUO on the World Wide Web. Okay? If you use Blackboard, you're going to be able to put it on the World Wide Web. This is coming. We are, I'm not going to get into the security details, but this month we will have achieved our low impact security. Okay? Which, because as an intelligence community we have the highest standards, we figured we're the best ones to do this. Because then everybody else is like, oh, well, if NGA can do it, anybody can. Okay? So we've got the highest standards. We have to go to high impact. That's going to happen by the first quarter of 19. So by the second quarter of 19, any one of you are going to be able to go to Blackboard and say, I want a site on the GovCloud like NGA, and I want to be able to put my learning out there, and it's going to be secure because you know it passed our specifications. This is really important. Because our learners sometimes want to take mandatory training on a snow day. Or improve my people skills on a day that I'm TDY or something like that. So it's important to put that learning where your folks need it, not where it's convenient and cheapest for you. So that's Blackboard on the World Wide Web. That was the one. If you say top 5 days at NGA, the day that we launched Blackboard on the World Wide Web, that was a day. That was a day. All right, so also SIPR. Our folks are across the globe, and they don't all have SCIFs. Sometimes they just have secret. So we're putting our learning on secret. Not only that, we have a great partnership with Commonwealth partners. We put learning on the Stone Ghost domain, which is their domain. So we're on 4. Our approach, and continues to be, is if there's a domain that somebody wants our learning on, tell us what it is and we'll put it there. Because it really is just a matter of picking it all up and moving it there. But just important as that is what Aaron was talking about with the mold training teams. Okay? To pick up 50 laptops and send an instructor to South America is not an easy job. Okay? Sometimes laptops get stuck in embassies and it might take, 3 years to get them back. All right? That's not the way to do business. For goodness sake, let's go to the cloud. So we've started something called virtual classrooms. Those virtual classrooms will allow folks that can get to a government domain can, by logging into our software server, can get any of our courseware. Okay? So that's our start. That's still not good enough because the ideal would be that we don't even have to send an instructor to Venezuela. That we can VTC an instructor to Venezuela while they're pulling up our courseware. That is in the works. We have all of our classrooms at both St. Louis and here in the National Capital Region have at least 1 level of VTC. Some of them have 3, so they might have unclassified, secret, and higher. Some of them have 2, some of them have 1, but all of our classrooms, we can VTC people in. So wouldn't it be cool if I could sit at my desk with a VTC into a class that I want to take, and boom, I'm there. We're not that far. And we need to think that way, think cloud-based, because the cloud is there to help our learners. So let's, you don't want to get me on my soapbox, I'm already there. Okay. So how did we do all this? What we did is we literally laid our cards on the table, not only with partners, but with customers. We said, you know what, we're going way out there and we're trying something new. The great thing about it is Our leadership said, we're taking the leash off, we're throwing it away, just go. And we did incredible things. We had a team, I'll give you the example. When we were getting ready to launch Blackboard on the World Wide Web, okay, as the program manager, I went, oh, let's do it as fast as possible. Let's launch it on January 4th. What does that mean? When are you testing? Christmas. I didn't go anywhere that year. I was at the office, but that's okay, because what we did was we told everybody, and everybody in the college pitched in. We said, will you help us test this? Cheryl tested from Atlanta. She was on leave. We said, go find the crappiest Wi-Fi you can possibly find and test it. The only place that couldn't get it was a Bolt bus between here and New York. It was the only place that couldn't get to it. But people said, even though I'm on vacation, I'll help you. I tested by taking CI awareness testing, training from my iPhone in the doctor's office. Now I'll tell you, for the intelligence agents, for the intelligence community, that's pretty remarkable.
Yes, it is.
It's pretty remarkable. So that's really freaking cool. And it's all for our learners. Yeah, it's cool for me, yeah, because I'm going up here going, yeah, this is great. But our learners now can meet their needs. If somebody can't get to work, I've got a young woman working for me now that's hurt. She can't get to work, but guess what? She can train. She can learn stuff. She can learn new skills. She can brush up on the skills she already has. We can put Aaron out there on the World Wide Web with training his instructors. So it truly was a team effort. Everybody jumped in and said, what do you need? What can we do? Even the director said, do what you want to do. We demoed Blackboard on the World Wide Web to Sue Gordon, who was the deputy director at the time. We took her out into the parking lot with my iPad and said, try it. And she was standing out there in the parking lot trying to take training, and she was like, this is so cool, I can do it if I live in Rome. So this is what, and so it truly was a team effort that everybody got together and said, this is what's best for the learner. So when people say OD squared is a program, it's not. It was an approach that we just kept that focus out with our learners instead of what was convenient for us. So it was hard work, especially that Christmas that we were testing and not having fun, but it did incredible things, and our numbers are doubling consistently every year. They're doubling. So people are using it, and for the intelligence community, that's a huge, huge thing. So I guess what I have to tell you is, go ahead and give it a shot. What have you got to lose? If it doesn't work, okay, one quick story. It's a young man that now works for Cheryl. I was the program manager for all of OD Squared, he was for just Blackboard. And he would sit in my office almost every day in December and say, do you think we're going to go to jail? And I would tell him, dude, we're not going to go to jail, we're okay, we're doing everything legally, but our IT folks were not happy with us because we were pressing that envelope. But honest to God, there were days that he would say, I just know we're going to go to jail. And we didn't go to jail, and we're fine. But sometimes you got to push and go out of your comfort zone. So, and keep your focus on your learners. So this is exciting stuff. Don't be afraid to take a chance. And so now I'm going to pass it off to Cheryl, who was one of our big testers. I'm not going to say anything out of school, but whenever she was testing Blackboard for us, I think there was a cocktail in her hand, and I wouldn't say anything.
Oh, that was unofficial time, so I would not have been drinking.
So please help me welcome Cheryl Water.
Thanks, Sean. You know, it's not like my boss is sitting in the audience. Thanks. And for the record, the employee who's working for me now, he is that employee who's in England. I think he's still fearful of being thrown in jail. Yeah, so what I'm going to talk to you about, and obviously Sean had 3 triple shots of espresso this morning, I believe. It's a hard act to follow. So what I'm going to do is shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the engagement that we do outside of the college. My primary role is running our partner engagement program, so we work with military services and other IC agencies on GEOINT training. So we've been established and chartered by the Department of Defense to kind of stand up this training council. We used best practices from some of our other agencies to determine how do we want to go about and execute this role. So one of the things, and it's a pretty tough world because one of the things that we are chartered to do is to establish standards for all of the geo work roles that are out there. And so working with even the military institutions, our military schoolhouses, trying to determine what are we going to call a standard, because some people, what we call maritime analysis, the Army engineers may think it's, oh, that's one of our flavors of engineers that we have. So there's not this clear-cut plug-and-play that we have in there. So what we've done with the Community Geospatial-Intelligence Training Council is we're kind of that body that is kind of leading that charge for the Department of Defense. We also will go look at the training that they develop. I'm blessed that I have a fantastic staff who are dispersed about. We have at each of the 4 military intelligence schoolhouses, I have a representative at each. So they kind of serve as that liaison to kind of help say, here's what we're doing at NGA to try to help foster that approach for the military schoolhouses so they know when they're training their new employees as they're going through their technical training, here's kind of the standards that we need to be driving towards. And then also we're working with them frequently on any emerging requirements. I mean, right now, the way we used to train in the past is not how we can train today. You know, that rote memorization, it's out the window. You know, all these, I'm amazed at these young kids out there. I am not a tech person at all. God bless my friend who has a 16-year-old who I can hand my phone to. She's my immediate tech support, and I'm like, tell me how to get to those emoji things. So again, we have to really shift how we think about training with these folks, and so that's where we're working with our partners on these emerging requirements. And then also we're expanding our efforts even with universities. I know we have an agreement with Penn State, and they were just at the college recently visiting with us to talk about, they have a great GIS program. I'm not trying to plug them, but it's true, they have a great GIS program. And so we work with them and kind of talk about what are some of the technologies and some of these new ways of training that you guys are bringing on that help deliver. Even down at, I was down at Fort Huachuca, garden spot of Sierra Vista. If anyone's from that area, I apologize. I was in Tucson, Arizona for 5 years. Not a fan of the desert. I'm sorry. I'm from Ohio, so I'm sorry. I like 4 seasons, not too hot and hotter. But I was at Sierra Vista, and the cognitive enhancement program that they've instituted there to help their military students go through training, they found out that they were just really very nervous, uptight. Some of these kids are fresh out of high school, have never been to college. So they've implemented this cognitive enhancement program that it combines the physical activities that they have to do with their PT every day that they have to go out and do. And they found that by giving them exercises while they're performing their training, their physical training, it helps them kind of learn how to adjust when their adrenaline is up to say, okay, when I'm in the classroom, I can feel my adrenaline coming up. I know what I could do to combat that and just kind of help calm myself down or think back to what we did in the field. I know I can accomplish this task. And so that's where we're partnering with these folks on, because you know, we don't have all the answers. We have to rely on others for help. And so we've been very successful with these other external partnerships that we have to kind of bring in some newer trends or even some of the newer technologies as Sean ever so passionately spoke about with Blackboard. So how are we going about establishing and looking at standards across the board for our training? Well, again, one of the best practices we picked up from one of our sister intelligence agencies are these advisory groups. And so we have these geospatial or GeoInt training advisory groups that are comprised of subject matter experts, not just from NGA, but we reached out to other, some of our combatant commands, the military schoolhouses, just to bring these people together and say, we want to establish for all of our work roles that we have or that we've identified, we want to establish these common training standards. And again, like I said, it's not a simple round peg, round hole. It's sometimes we have to figure out, even with the lexicon can be just night and day with how we're working with these partners. And so this is where it was a very long process. We started out with 9 initially, and you can see back in FY16 just some of the work roles that we've addressed. As far as, let's get these folks together, we've identified this, and this takes a lot of commitment, not just from us, but from our partners that we work with, to say, okay, looking across the board, looking at all of our curriculum, what we train, here's where we see commonalities that exist. And so that's where we said, okay, great. This is our starting point. These are going to be our training standards. Now, not surprisingly, some people, Coast Guard, they're starting to come on board as well. They may not have training standards. They may not even be training anything right now. We're working with them on the GIS curriculum. So the Coast Guard may respond, we have no standards, so we're just going to apply what NGA does. And that's evolving over time. As you can see in FY17, we've added 7 more work roles for our standards. And we're getting ready this year for a certification program that the college has, or the agency has. They're going to do a joint task or a job task analysis. And we're going to take the results from that and have a look at these standards that we've already completed in the last couple of fiscal years and say, where do we need to update these things? Where do we need to flesh this out a little more? And so again, we're leveraging work that's being done from someone else that will help us with our roles. And so that way, again, as technology evolves, as missions change, work roles may change, we're going to update these, the standards as we move along. And then I have just an example here. This is for our full motion video. Again, you can see all of our joint partners that we worked with. We looked again across the board at all of their curriculum that they have, and basically just said, okay, this is an exemplar. This is pretty much one of the first ones that we launched to kind of show here across the board, here DoD, here are the standards that we have for this training. So that way now as an agency develops training, they know, here are the standards we want you to go to because that helps us execute our functional management role. So again, we look at it, this year we're having, in next month as a matter of fact, we're having our SIGITSI, our acronym there, we're having our annual conference. We're going to look at some of these standards again, deciding what do we need to update, is everything good? And so again, it's just an evolving process as we go along. So I know it was a tough act to follow. I didn't have the 3 triple shots of espresso like Sean did. Does anyone have any questions? Yes?
Yeah, regarding the Blackboard posted on, is it FedGov or GovCloud, is there reciprocity with the FedRAMP certification to other federal agencies? And specifically, how would DoD go about leveraging that capability?
So I will defer that one to Sean since she's that expert.
Okay, so this mic works, so I can just say, who asked the question?
Kathy Kelly.
Oh, okay. So, okay, all right. So,
yes, Dan.
FedRAMP certification is for the federal government as a whole. So everybody can leverage that. That's sort of like getting the good housekeeping seal of approval. Okay? And so if and when you go to Blackboard and say, I want to be in the glove cloud. Too much espresso. I want to be in the Gov Cloud, and you use a Blackboard instance on their servers, which is what we are, on their servers, you're automatically at the certification because their servers are the ones that are certified. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, but do you have like a contract that other agencies can use, or is this like independent with each federal agency with Blackboard?
Okay, now this is where I'm going to be a little bit candid. Our contract with Blackboard says that it's only NGA that uses it. We are currently doing minimal sharing with other agencies because Blackboard's business model is to get as much money from each person as possible. Okay, but I'm going to be completely candid here. When we are currently in discussions with them, DIA and NGA together, saying we want Blackboard on SIPR together. Okay, and Blackboard went, no way, no. And we said, okay, if you won't, we're going to go somewhere else and find somebody who will. And they all of a sudden went, well, I guess we will. So I would love for us to be able to just flip a switch and everybody be able to use our Blackboard. That's not the way it's built. And I can't keep my information secure if everybody can get on it. However, we can always talk, we can always communicate. I also, because Blackboard is linked to Skillsoft as well, because the Skillsoft portal links through our Blackboard so we can get to the 5,000 Skillsoft classes, professional development. That contract is with Skillsoft and NGA, okay? But you know what? When it comes right down to Blackboard, even managed hosting, which is what we're doing, it's not that expensive. It's not as expensive as going out and buying the software and buying a server. It is cheaper for them to manage, and then you've got 99.9% uptime. So when we looked at it cost effectively, it was so much easier to just let them do it. And the cost benefit analysis was, it was out of the park. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, so any questions at all, if anybody would like to go? So for any of the panel members.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
please go ahead.
I understand Skillsoft they offer compliant courses. For your studio, the people that do the full, the mid, or the independent, do you have already software also as they can do their own screen capture in audio? How do you apply the power compliance for the closed caption with that?
Okay, so what we do with full service video, we say you have to have a script, because obviously if you're doing full service, they have to have a script. And then we show you how to self-caption. With assisted service and self-service, we tell you, you can't go in the studio and record. We follow the Netflix rule. Netflix is required within 30 days of posting a video to have it closed captioned. We follow that same rule. Since we figured if the Supreme Court said so, then we might as well follow it. So we tell all of our customers 30 days or it's pulled, and we do pull them down.
So you have you direct them to certain software so they can do that?
Well, and the problem with software is like drag and dictation and some of those. When you start talking tech languages, they don't really work that well. But most people don't. You really don't have a good, successful video if you're sitting there and you don't have your words written out. And so we start with that and say, we'll help you fill in the blanks. But people that go in and wing it in the studio don't have good videos. It's the people that are timed and they know what they're going to say and they write it out. But we do assist them and help them to figure out the right way to do it.
There's a quick add-on to that. We are looking at software that can help us with that. We're getting very close to that right now.
There is a software program out there that we are beta testing in the intelligence community. It is really, really awesome, but but then we have to take the video to a separate location and all that kind of stuff. So there are tremendous strides being made every day with dictation software, but you still have to consider the fact that what you're talking about may be different than what the next person's talking about, and that's how drag and dictation learns.
There was somebody over here. Yes, please.
I'm very interested in the leadership component of this, and that you started your presentation for this clearly grand success by saying that your leadership said, we're taking off the leash, go do. So this was a grand success. What do you think would have happened, or what will happen next time when something like this huge push for agility and mobility goes a little sideways, and the Blackboard contract costs exponentially more than you would have thought, or the first time something gets past FOUO and something secret winds up on the web, or somebody not cleared has access and it winds up on the Washington Post front page. So it's very easy for leadership to say, go do, go push boundaries when things are very successful. Well, what happens when something goes really sideways? How do you think the leadership would have responded?
Well, we had some things go sideways, obviously, because you can't have success without having a few speed bumps and a few struggles. But when we sat with leadership and we discussed it, nothing was done without full clearance, okay? And when I say clearance, it's a little c, full clearance with them knowing what was going on. Things didn't work. There were things that didn't work. We wanted to launch FOUO on January 1 of 2016. We still haven't gone FOUO. And we had some people say, we're going to shut you down, we're going to turn you off. And so we worked through all of those. It depends. The way we've always sold it to the leadership is we're not trying to break rules here. Mistakes are always going to get made, even if you've got all of the stop gaps that you need. And so we never were breaking laws. We were just doing things a little bit different than had been done in the past. But we did all the research to make sure that there wasn't anything. Now, there's just as much probability of somebody accidentally putting secret in an email as there is for them posting it on courses. When we post on courses, we have like 6 people double checking to make sure that, you know, make sure that everything is on the up and up. And yeah, and it's double checked and triple checked. Because most of the stuff we have on the World Wide Web is contractor purchase, is purchased. The FOUO we're talking about are things like mandatory training. You know, 8 of our 12 mandatory trainings are on Blackboard, but we still have some that are FOUO. And FOUO, as we know, is fading away, but so we just double check and triple check, and when you make a mistake, you go, okay, so what's next? What do we want to do? Do we want to throw FOUO out the window, or do we want to say, no, let's regroup and try something else?
I think we're also fortunate to have from the top down to the bottom people that are willing to take risks and willing to say, go out and try these things. The flip side of that, though, is us making sure that whenever we're letting them we let them understand what the risks are, that we give them an honest assessment. So it's really a two-way street. And they, as Sean alluded to, they're not going into any of these things blind. They say, figure out how to do this better, which is great for us. But what we do in return is let them know, here's the risk that you're exposing yourself to if we go in this direction. And again, that implies that we've got complete honesty and willingness on both sides of this thing. And I think that together those things have led to success.
Yeah, please don't think that by taking the leash off, they said, just do it and we don't care what happens. No, they were fully briefed, but essentially they said, we're going to trust you and you're going to be honest with us, and that was the way to go.
And the honesty, like you said, is two-way. Anything else? Right.
What is the name of the closed caption software that you're using? Is it Caption Colorado?
The program that we are beta testing, I'm not sure that's an unclassified name. Is it unclassified?
Let's work on that.
We are beta testing something, and it is being tested. It's an NQTEL program, but I'm not sure the name of it is unclassified. So I will give you a business card when we finish here. I will do that research to see if I can talk to you about it, and then we'll go from there. Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm reasonably sure that it is, but it's better to be
Yeah.
safe. Yeah.
I'm just a little heebie-jeebie-ish.
Go to
jail. Michael doesn't want to go to jail. Any other questions?
Anything else? Anything on the instructor side, on the adjunct side? Accessibility, we talked about.
You got one here?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I just want your card because I'd like to.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everyone. Our final presenters today will be Dan Milkey and Stuart Lane from the U.S. Government Publishing Office. They'll educate us on the steps their agency took to increase employee engagement through leadership education and development. Let's welcome them.
Thank you, Kim. I really appreciate the introduction. I'm Dan Melke. This is Stuart Lane from the Government Publishing Office. Before you came here today, how many of you did not even know the Government Publishing Office existed? Let's be honest. Okay, a few of you, right? Yeah. So we provide government documents, government information to the American people. We're a medium-sized agency. We have about 1,740 some odd employees given day to day. So we're some people would actually call us small, but they actually classify as medium. I want to start out by thanking the USA Graduate School for inviting us here today to be able to share this with you. And I want to thank you for your interest in coming. Hopefully you came, some of you came for us too. The other presenters was really great. I've been learning a lot, I've been taking a lot of notes. I really appreciate it. And a lot of times, you know, I sit and I wonder why the government doesn't share information more, right? So we tend to go out on our own in our agencies and we develop all these great things, but we don't share it. And then all of a sudden you hear about this, like the instructor, oh, no, I'm looking for the instructor program that you have to train instructors, adjunct instructors. I mean, that's phenomenal, but we don't share that. So I'm really happy to see the graduate school extending this invitation for us to learn from each other, to take that opportunity. I'm not sure if Davita left or not, but I wanted to say thank you to her as well. Davita led our organization. She's actually there for in different roles, but in 2011 she became our chief of staff, and in 2012 she became our director. Back then it was called a public printer, believe it or not, that was a term. And that has now been changed to the director since we've changed our name to the Government Publishing Office. And I want to say thank you to her because you'll hear us talk a lot about her today and her influence on this program. All right, so now I got to find the, there we go. Okay, so surprisingly, I'm actually not going to go through all this, but I wanted to share a couple things to kind of, there's Davita. So now I'm really nervous. Davita's no longer my boss, but she was, and we do miss her dearly. We all know the day that Davita left the agency and went on to bigger and better things. But I was just saying, Davita, how they're going to hear your name a lot during this presentation today because of the influence that you had on the program. But just to kind of put into perspective, so when Davita took over the agency in 2012, a lot of things have been happening, right? 1990, the internet came out, wasn't widely used, few people had it, we had to dial up. Remember that? Can anybody make that noise? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Right? Thank goodness that's gone. But in the 2000s, it really started taking off. Right? We started getting access. I'm a self-learner. I love the internet. Suddenly, I didn't have to pay a university to go to a course in order to get access to the resource that I really wanted, which was their library. It was readily accessible to me. Right? So the digital technology really started changing things. Now think about an agency that had been there for over 150 years. Printing. Right? Now we do a lot more than just printing. We have hundreds of proofreaders. We have typesetters. We have keyboarders. Right? Because we get the raw manuscript from Congress every day and we turn that into the congressional record. And some days that congressional record can be 1,000 pages, right? Or maybe we get a bill that's 2,000 pages that we have to turn into a published document. And there's a lot to printing that people don't get. And I get that now because when I came over there 8 years ago, I thought, hey, I typed up this document, I turned it into a PDF. I can be a printer. But it isn't that easy, and we find that out. So going back to this radical change that Davita led us through, think about this. There's a term in printing called, Stuart's a printer, former printer by trade. It's called kerning. Kerning. Does anybody know where the term, what is the term kerning and where it came from? Okay. The term kerning is the space between two words, right?
The letters, two letters.
Two letters, right? And it came from, I'll let Stuart tell you because he's better at this. When I heard this, I was in awe, but he's...
Right, when, Johannes Gutenberg invented movable type in around 1490, I believe. and which was from chiseling rocks and letters and words into rocks, and then all of a sudden Johannes Gutenberg invented movable type. And the term kerning came from the fact that he used the dried kernel of corn as a spacer between words. So there's a little history in the printing process.
Little history. Kind of tells you things hadn't changed a whole lot, right? We weren't using kernel of corn anymore, but the kerning word stuck. And it's still used today even in e-publishing. And a lot of people don't realize it. E-publishing is a lot more technical than a lot of people think it is. But Davita had to lead us from this industry that had words and terminology that they'd used for hundreds of years, right? 500 years into the new e-publishing. So, and then one of the big things that really changed things for us was the iPhone, 2007, right? So suddenly, you know, not only did we have access to documents on the internet, but we no longer had to be in front of a desktop computer, right? We could get it from anywhere. And if you wanted to pay the data bill, you could get internet anywhere you wanted to. So you could access those documents. You could carry them with you in your pocket. You know, I went to a class one time and they said, as a kind of an opener for instructors, they said, well, pick something and talk about it that's really important to you. And I held up my iPhone. And everybody's like, what in the world? This person's really hooked, really addicted to an iPhone. But my point was, all my favorite music's there, all my favorite pictures are there, I can get to my favorite books from there, right? So all of a sudden, all this stuff that I used to have on my desk that was stationary became mobile for me. So it also allowed me to communicate instantly with all the people that I love, anywhere in the world, right? So it really changed things for us. And I just wanted to kind of put that in perspective as we go through this. So, how many of you have actually had a bill introduced saying your agency's obsolete and probably needs to be abolished? Right? Well, we lived through that, and Davita led us through that. So, Davita became the public printer, soon to become our director in 2012. 2013, during that time, a bill was introduced saying, we don't really need a government printing office, right? The interesting thing, Davita was already out in front of that, and she was saying, we really should be the government publishing office. So we actually started, which is part of the leadership thing that we talk about in our program, is we started kind of reframing our brand. So you didn't see government printing office anymore, you saw GPO, right? So when it came time to change, you know, people knew us as GPO at that point. And then we slowly got rid of the printing and we put publishing in there. So that kind of puts it in perspective of what we've gone through and why it was so important to develop a leadership program that really addressed that transformational leadership that Davita talked about at the very beginning of this program today. So actually Davita was the chief of staff when I got the phone call from our EEO director, Nadine Elsie, and she said, Davita would like us to develop a leadership program for all employees. Open enrollment, anybody can sign up, they need their supervisor's permission, but it doesn't matter what job they're in, it doesn't matter what grade they are, it's a leadership program for anyone. Well, I was really excited because I believe in leadership development. I'm a retired Marine. I can tell you that it works. You know, developing leaders works. I think we have I can't see if you're Air Force or Army Force. Air Force, leadership development works, right? We know that from the military. So I was really excited about it, but I thought, oh, you know, because in the military, you know, if you're a staff sergeant, you get sent to the Staff NCO Academy, right? If you're a first sergeant, you get sent to the First Sergeant Academy, right? If you're an officer, you get sent to the Warrant Officer Basic Course or the Basic Training School. So it's very like, now you're here in your career and you're going to learn this. So a leadership program for everybody was a little bit challenging for us. You know, how do you develop that where you can keep a, we don't use a GS scale, we use a PG. But I'm going to use the GS scale for this audience because I'm sure that's what we're more familiar with. So we have wage grades and we have PGs. The PGs are fairly equivalent to GS. So how do you have a class where, wage grade employee, right, that may be a laborer, may work in building facilities, in there with a GS-15 director of the agency's internet security, right, IT security. How do you develop a program that keeps everybody's attention and everybody learns? Well, that kind of made us step outside the box a little bit. So we really had to look at what do we need to address in the agency. So we were buying, commercial off-the-shelf leadership development programs. I actually came from Defense Contract Management Agency, where we were spending millions of dollars, about $6 million a year, training and developing our supervisors and managers, and probably another $3 or $4 million a year, offering different programs at different levels. Some of those were kind of customized a little bit, but what we had to really look at is, well, what's really relevant to the agency? What do we need to teach? What do they need to learn about? What do they need? What kind of, skills do they need to develop? So we wanted to make sure that it was relevant, the models were relevant, and the tools were relevant that we taught. So we also said, well, it needs to fit the audience needs as well as the agency's needs. And we heard that was a theme we've heard throughout the day, right? Really look at your audience and figure out what they want so they'll be willing to come. We have programs of attraction. Now we have 3 mandatory courses. Anti-harassment, zero tolerance for drugs, zero tolerance for violence in the workplace. Everything else we have to attract people to. Nobody's told you have to go to this training. So we had to make sure that we could attract that audience as well. When Davita asked Nadine Elsie, our EEO director at the time, to champion this for us and with me, it was really interesting because Nadine Elsie had this really unique ability to negotiate. So we had tried to do some things in leadership development years before, and it was shot down. We have 12 unions. At that time, we had more than 12 unions. Does anybody here think it's in the best interest of union officials to train their members to be great leaders? Why would that not be beneficial for them? Because they're elected, right? So probably the last thing I would want as a union president is to start training my competition for that job. So there's a lot of reasons that the union might not necessarily agree. Supervisors and managers may not necessarily agree. Can't let people go. We're about 50% blue collar production, right? We've got to keep the machines running. So every morning, the managers and supervisors in that area have to figure out, all right, so I got to do 7 million envelopes. I got to do another 500 envelopes for this congressperson. Who's going to go over there and run those machines? Who's going to make sure that product's moving around? So for them, the idea of letting somebody go for 3 or 4 days, or even a week, or even 2 weeks at a time, was just a non-starter for them. They didn't even want to entertain it. Well, Nadine Elsie was amazingly good at getting the labor relations people at the table, getting the unions at the table, and also getting the management at the table to kind of iron out all these concerns. So we came up with this really crazy idea. We're going to do a one-day course over 10 months. So we're going to have a one-day course once a month over 10 months. So that way the production managers felt they could support it, and it wouldn't pull them out as much. There was some skillful negotiations going on with the union. And again, I was kind of sitting back watching thinking, it is not in their best interest as union officers for us to train them. When that dawned on me, it kind of like was this, wow, how are we going to get this through? And then what I really, and you talk about the executive team's buy-in. So Davita, as the chief of staff at the time, sat down with me and Nadine and went through Nadine's slides that we were going to brief the executive team on the program with. And she went slide by slide and asked Nadine, how are you going to do this? How are you going to... That was some of the best mentoring that I've seen in my entire career. Because we had to convince these executives as well that this is something you want to invest in. This is what you want to do. This was radically different from things that the way we had done things before. So we came up, again, kind of that basic leadership model didn't work. We had 10 courses, 1 day each over 10 months. Now that might not work for everybody. We have 1,740 some odd employees depending on the day. And the reason I know that so well is because I look at the numbers every morning as a Chico. And about 1,300 of them are physically in one location about 5 blocks from the house, right?
Yeah.
So that model really works for us, and that might not work for everybody. But what I can tell you is the 1 day model turned into a blessing. We actually do a 2 day model when we do self-awareness. But it turned into a blessing, and we're going to talk about that as well. We also had to figure out, okay, if I'm a PG5 or if I'm a worker grade 2 or 3, I probably don't see leadership opportunities within GPO for me right now, right? So we're going to teach them these leadership skills. How can we have them take those out and exercise that skill and try new things and see if they get a different result? And what we found was that we really had to talk about leading in your home, leading in your community, as well as work. And we were banking on the fact that if I learned to lead better at home, or if I learned to lead better in a community organization, that I'm going to bring that back to the agency at some point. Would most of you agree with that? Yes. Right. So that was kind of a different approach we took as well. We really use examples. Stuart and I have taught the LEAD program now for over 6 years. We use our examples. We use our examples because we want to show people that leading at home is just as important as leading here at GPO, right? So, and you can lead without formal authority, which is what Davita talked about during her presentation or her keynote speech about transformational leadership. Everybody can be a leader, wherever you're at, whatever position you're in. So, we really focused on behaviors and traits of successful leaders, personal leadership, leading yourself. What we really ended up with is we spend about 60% of the instruction time talking about becoming the person that other people will want to follow, right? And that's about leading yourself, right? If you go to a financial planner and you find out that that financial planner filed for bankruptcy, are you going to take any advice off of them? No. So you have to be able to demonstrate that, hey, I've got my stuff together and I'm leading myself well, and if you come along with me, you can be part of this, whatever you're achieving in life. So, and then we talked about leading others, leading teams, the leadership tools, models, and methods, and the applied application of the exercises and the results. So we want to talk a little bit about some of this. So I mentioned we had 10 courses. So we teach Introduction to Leadership. And part of that is, what's the difference between leadership and management, right? This is management, this is leadership. They're different, but to be great, you got to do both. We also do an exercise to really wake people up to what leadership is. So we ask them, name 3 traits or behaviors. Think of the best leader you've ever had. Whoever it is. It could be a former boss, it could be a coach, it could be your parents. Who's the best leader you've ever had in your life? Who's the worst leader you've ever had? Right? Let's not even call them a leader, because if they're a bad leader, they're not a leader. They're maybe just a boss, right? So think of that person. Write down 3 behaviors or traits. And then we put them up there and we say, in these 3 categories. And one of them is, what, behavior?
Yes, behavior.
Intelligence?
Right.
And technical ability.
Right. That's it.
Where do you think a majority, and when I say a majority, in the high 90% of those behaviors end up under? Behavior. And they talk about how they make them feel. Right? So suddenly everybody goes, oh, being the best technician in my group maybe won't get me up there. Right? Maybe I need to start being a little bit more cooperative with my fellow workers. And maybe I shouldn't get angry every time my boss comes around and asks me to do something. Because maybe they don't want me up there with them if I'm that way. Right? And then it really relieves them to find out that being wickedly smart doesn't necessarily make you a great leader. There are some people who get away with it. Right? I knew a gentleman that worked in the Obama administration, and he wore a John Deere short-sleeve shirt and this crazy-looking tie to go over and talk to the president one time. And I was like, really? You're going to do that? And then I realized, well, he's wickedly smart. You know, he's a professor at MIT. You know, he can get away with that because his brain is carrying him through life. But I can't get away with that. You know, if I ever met President Obama or former President Obama, I need to look even better than I look today. He's not going to give me a, you know, I'm just not that. So sometimes you can get away with that, but what we found was people don't really care if you're wickedly smart. What they really care about is the way you treat them. Whether they're, in fact, feeling like when they come to work, what they do is appreciated. And they want a leader to make sure that you get them the resources they need to do their job well, to treat them well, to understand when they're going through troubled times, to celebrate when they have successes, no matter how small. So that was, we really enjoyed that. And what we found was, as people progress through the program, they start seeing leadership opportunities that they've never seen before. They see leadership opportunities at home, in their community, and even at work as well. So we also touch on some topics that are not so comfortable. Ethics, right? We talk about ethics. We actually have an assessment that we do on ethics. And it's all over the place. But the point of that is the leader has to set the ethical standards. And they better be high, because people are going to be dancing all around those ethical standards, right? They're going to be on the border of that. So if your ethical standards are, as a leader, are not high, then somebody's going to go off and do something really bad. We also talk about trust and leadership. I went to the EIG Fellows Program, and I learned a great deal. I really enjoyed it. That's with the Partnership for Public Service. But they didn't talk about trust. And I said, you know, trust is really the foundation. Watch the evening news. How many times do they talk about trust, right? The recent summit with North Korea. Well, if they can trust each other, right? That's the way they start out, right? Because no conversation matters unless there's trust involved, right? And saying, trust me, is probably a little key to everybody to go, not trusting them. Convince me to trust them. So we wanted to talk about trust and leadership. We talked about continuous learning. We go to Frederick Douglass's house and talk about that phenomenal ability of him to learn in the worst possible conditions under the threat of death. Right? And he still learned. Still took opportunities. We talk about Abraham Lincoln. There's so many leaders. You know, you could look at Claire Barton and the phenomenal job that she did with her kind of redevelopment as opportunities were taken away from her. So we want to make sure people understand you have to keep learning. You know, you never stop. And self-awareness. Now during the self-awareness, we use some assessments that are a little dangerous for us. Has anybody here taken a FIRO-B? It measures those 3 things called control, how much do I want, and how much do I want other people to have over me. Affection, how much affection do I want, and how much affection am I willing to give. And then the last one is inclusion, right? How much do I want people to include me, and how much do I want people to not include me? So what happens is some people, that's a little bit off, but they don't realize it. And, you know, when we do the Myers-Briggs, we're really good at delivering that. People walk out, yeah, that's me, I'm really happy, you know, now I know how to use my strengths. We do the strength finder, we call that the feel-good assessment, right? That's me, I'm going to start using these strengths. The FIRO-B is, whoa, I want to control everything and nobody better control me. That's a real eye-opener for people. So try to get through that interpretation of results. You know, but it's really eye-opening to people because they realize some of their behaviors are sending mixed messages to people. And they don't understand them. And if people don't understand you, they're not going to follow you. So the one that we use the most is, all right, so my need for inclusion is low. I don't really want to be, I'm not saying it's me. Actually, I like to be included. But I'm saying, as an example, if my need for inclusion is low, right, that means when you go to lunch with your friends in the workplace, I don't want to go home. Right? Oh, no. I'm going to stay here at my desk. I'm going to heat up my meal. You know, I'm going to watch a couple YouTube videos. You know, it's my mental... But, right, so that may be what I want. But maybe what I'm sending to people is, I want to be included. So what that would kind of look like is, you would walk up to me and you would say, Dan, you know, 3 or 4 of us are going over to blah, blah, blah for lunch. You want to come along? And I'd be like, you know, no, I really can't go. I got all this work to do. I really appreciate you asking. Well, that happens 3 or 4 times in a row. Are you going to stop asking me at some point? Yeah. And then all of a sudden I go, oh, they don't like me. They don't invite me to go to lunch. Right? So it's really important that people know that about themselves. So you can tell we really go into some topics that we've really had to learn how to expose kind of those raw nerves to people. So they understand, you know, this is a blind spot for me, and maybe I need to do something about this if I want people to really, you know, follow me as well. We teach customer service. Does anybody want to know why we teach customer service and leadership? We run like a business, and we want our leaders to lead that customer service effort because we run like a business. We have to make sure that our customers are satisfied and happy with us. Title 44 does require them to come to us, but I think I actually heard Davita say a few times, we're not out there hunting them down if they're not. So, you know, we have to attract our customers as well. You want to add anything to that? We're at a point where...
Sure.
So we had this idea we're going to sit here as a panel, but this podium's in the way, so half of you wouldn't be able to see us.
Right, yeah.
So we're kind of working this thing out. So
okay, sure. Stand up. Hi, everybody. Thanks for still being here. We appreciate the fact that you're still here. I guess there's lunch looming, possibly, so that's keeping some folks in the seats. We're happy to see that. Dan touched on some of the topics that we talk about in the LEAD program. I think it's important to understand that the LEAD program, it was kind of the idea of an executive at our agency to start developing the leaders of the future, right? Because in 2010, I think it was, research showed that 38% of the workforce at our agency was going to be retirement eligible. So retirement eligible, I think it was 38%, right around there. 38% of the people that had been there the longest were going to be able to leave the agency. The knowledge was going to be gone. We were a transformational agency who was in the middle of this great change, going from a printing-centric agency to a content-centric digital agency. And all the people that had been leading our agency for 40 years, we have people that have been there for 40, 50 years, we're going to be leaving. So we had to find topics that were really related to the values that our agency had. And our agency, thanks to the leadership of our agency, does a really, really great job of talking about what our mission is as an agency. We keep America informed. And we also do a really good job of telling everybody what our values are, and customer service is one of the values our agency has. And if you get in the elevator at our agency, there's a poster there that tells you what our values are. We're communicating our values every day. And when I'm standing up in front of class teaching topics to people that work in all areas of our agency, for me to say it's important for you to have good customer service skills, it's really easy for me to incorporate the fact that if you look in the elevator at the poster on the wall, it says customer service is very important to our agency. And we start talking about the basics of customer service, and customer service is about accountability. And if you guys work in the federal government or even in the private sector, how many times have you sent an email out to somebody asking for something and never got a response? Everybody's nodding on that one, right? You've called and left a message and they never called you back, right? So it's customer service. It's basic customer service skills. And customer service is about accountability. It's about responsibility. It's about knowing what your job is, understanding the mission of your agency, and knowing that you have to serve everyone in the agency to produce that product or whatever it is. So it is your job. It's one of the things I talk about in the customer service class. What is your job? And then when that phone rings in your department at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and it's still ringing and ringing and ringing, it's really your job to pick that phone up, right? Because you're part of that department and your department has to produce effectively and deliver constantly, right? So leadership and customer service kind of go together. We also talk about mentoring and the importance of learning relationships. And we talk about the importance of vision in leadership. And it was really easy for me to teach a leadership class and talk about the importance of vision when we had Davita leading our agency, and I can actually use quotes from her hearings in front of Congress to say, listen to the vision in this speech that she gave. She was telling people in Congress that we need to become content-centric publishers. We need to host things and post things online that everybody can read. We need to share information. What she did behind the scenes is she started holding town hall meetings at GPO on a quarterly basis. And not that she necessarily wanted to stand up in front of everybody in the whole agency all at one time and communicate what she was working to do. But what she did is she brought everybody along on the vision of what we needed to do. And when I teach the class about vision and mission and goals, having real examples of leadership was just quite remarkable. It really opens the eyes. It opens the eyes to make everybody in the class and in the agency realize the subjects and the topics and the theories are all actually being done and being used in our agency every day. Leaders and executives are doing these things daily. So we developed real live curriculum, and we get everybody involved in the process. And one of the other things that we do in this class that I don't think Dan touched on was he said that we have one class a month, okay? We also do what we call practical application exercises. Homework, okay? We give homework in this class. Now imagine we have an open enrollment policy in our agency that you can sign up for classes if you want to, right? They're not required. So what that means to us is the people are volunteering to come to class, right? And what are they getting out of it? We hope they're getting knowledge and skills and abilities to lead in the future. That's what our goal is to develop the leaders of the future. But why are they there? Well, they're there to learn. And you really have to do a good quality job of giving them a good quality product to make them want to come back to class the next time. Because they don't have to come back to class if they don't want to. So you bring them into class and you inspire them and you show them good examples of why these things are important. You deliver good theories and good knowledge and convince them this is why you need this. And you send them out of class that day and you say, for the next 2 weeks I want you to journal about a tough situation that you're going through. And then I want you to give me a summary of what you did in that 2-week process. So challenging your students is an important part in the process. To push them and develop them more is an important part of the process. So the curriculum is a really important part of that process. the results of our leadership development program, actually, I was working in the plant operations area at GPO, and I had applied for a supervisory job, and I did not get the job. And then I enrolled in the LEAD program. I actually am a person that went through, Dan was my instructor. I went through Dan's program, and what Dan showed me was that there were things that I was not doing very well. You know, I was not presenting myself in the best possible way.
Not intentionally.
Right. There were things that had kind of held me back in my career. I didn't get the supervisory job based on the fact that I did not convince the people on the panel that were interviewing that day that I was the right person for that job. And in the LEAD program, I kind of learned those skills. I learned the importance of understanding what people think about you. So the personal branding process is important. So so I got the job. I was teaching people in plant operations. I was instructor in the technical areas of the printing trade. I was teaching people Photoshop skills and how to do all the technical things in my area that they needed to learn, writing SOPs and things like that. And then an interagency job opening came available for an instructor in the training department. And I thought, well, I'm teaching people things, and I had worked really hard to kind of put myself into a position because I didn't get the one job to move into another area, right? So I was looking at this slide earlier before we came up here, and I realized, you know, there's 400 GPO employees out of the 1,760 of us that have gone through the program. That's about 23% of our agency has gone through our leadership development program. And we're working on our 7th year right now. And Dan had a conversation with Davita once, I remember because I was kind of there, and he said, well, Davita, I don't know if we should do the LEAD program again. And Davita said, you don't have a choice. You have to do this. Leadership development skills are essential in our agency. We're still going through a transition. We still need more leaders. But Davita, I kind of think that we're going to kind of lose interest in this. I think that people are going to quit volunteering to come to this class. You know, Dan, just keep pushing forward. So we did. And the program's still going very strong. I'm in the middle. We just finished the 6th class last week. And interest is still strong, and people still come to my class to say, are you going to have this again, and when's the class going to be again? So, and one of the things I said to Dan when I first started was, we need to figure out how can we measure the success of this program. And Dan said, well, I started developing a survey, and I think we need to send this survey out to all of the people that have gone through the LEAD program. So we started surveying and asking people for their feedback about what we did that did work and what we did that didn't work, and the things that were good and the things that were not so good. And the information that came back from folks was pretty impressive. I also developed a survey, an engagement survey, and on the very first day of the very first class, before the very first lesson, I give all the participants in class an employee engagement survey to fill out. And then on the very last day of the very last class, I give them the same employee engagement survey. And the survey, and then I compare the results. And what we've seen is, from the first day of class to the last day of class, employee engagement results have risen. So leadership development is a powerful thing in an agency like ours, and I imagine in an agency like yours also. So 67% of the people that have been through the LEAD program felt like they agreed that the LEAD program benefited their career and also in exposing opportunities at GPO. 59.
Let me say something. Sure. Is this on? Yeah. So before Stuart goes through the numbers, I just want to say something about the numbers. And actually, I want to back up a little bit. You know, we're going to go over kind of the results and why we think this worked. But before we get into the actual numbers, I wanted to say that we have, because we did this internally, and whether you do this with
government employees out of your workforce development department, or if you hire somebody like the U.S. Graduate School to come in, there's some things that are really important to get this going. And they go through as cohorts. So it's the same 25, 30 people in the same group. And we can actually watch them change the way they interact with each other. And about the third session, they're really getting lively. They're interacting extremely well. We encourage lively discussions. We encourage people to say, I don't think this is working here in this agency, or I don't think this is happening right. We want to hear their opinions and their perceptions, right? And then it's kind of our job as the leadership people to hear that and kind of give them different ways of looking at it. One of them is, you can't change other people. All you can do is change yourself in the way you react to them. So that's kind of one of our main themes, is that self-leadership, right? If somebody's treating you bad, you treating them bad is going to get you to one result. They're going to treat you worse, and then you're going to treat them worse, and it's just going to keep going. We speak the truth. You know, and Davita and the rest of the members of the executive team really helped us do that, to let us talk about the tough things. When Congress sent over the bill to say, why do we even have a GPO? Let's look at this. Guess who the first people to see that bill? Our proofreaders, right? So here they're at midnight, right? And all of a sudden this thing pops up and says, hey, we ought to just shut the GPO down. They're irrelevant. And we use that as a leadership example. Okay, so you're on the executive team. How do you come in and lead that morning? What do you do? How do you get people, you know, they said, let's do away with this program. They named a specific program in a bill one time. And I said, there's 20 people that do that. How do you get them to get up in the morning and come into work and do their job now that they know that Congress thinks they don't really need them? So we used real life examples, and it was uncomfortable at times. You know, sometimes Davita would say, you know, I was talking to so-and-so in the elevator, and I was like, uh-oh, this is not going to go well. Because a lot of times what you say to people is not what they hear, right? But it was really interesting how Davita was even interacting with the participants as well, because she knew kind of the content that we were teaching that day and what was going on. So when they got in the elevator and said, oh, we just learned about the vision and mission of DPO, you know, it was always an interesting conversation. And we really work on, we're here to address their leadership skills and needs. We're not here to fix your boss's leadership skills or needs or your perception of what they should be. You know, we just can't do that, right? That person has to come to us and seek our help in that area. But we can teach you how to better deal with maybe a boss that you don't get along with. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that. And then before Stuart goes into the numbers, I also wanted to say this is an open enrollment to all employee course. So, you know, we get scared when our numbers don't say 90% or 80% when you do a survey. And what I'd offer is don't get scared. I mean, if you can move the needle, you know, if this was in the 30 percentile, I still would have been happy. Because we asked 20 questions. There's only 14 here. But we asked 20 questions. So maybe it helped, you know, the 67% were helped in this area, and another 59%. But if we would have just said, as going through the leadership program helped you, you know, become a better leader, we would have been in the high 90%. I imagine we might even hit 100%. But, you know, a lot of times agencies, and I came from an agency, DCMA, we'd have a board. And we get all these applicants and we'd say, no, this person's not ready, this person's ready, right? We would screen out people. We don't do that at GPO with this program. If you want to come and your supervisor can let you attend due to workload, you're invited in. And we deal with some rough customers from time to time, don't we, Stuart?
Yeah.
But the point is, these aren't high-po employees, right? They're everybody. They're everybody employees. And there's high-pos in there, and there's people that's disgruntled, and it's quite a mixture. But I wanted to mention that before Stuart got into the numbers, because, again, don't be scared to show your management numbers that aren't 100% or 90%. You know, that's where we were at my last agency. And if a program wasn't hitting in the high 90s, they'd be like, well, we ought to just kill this, right? But the point is, ask a lot of questions and try to figure out, has anybody gained something? Because everybody gains something different out of a program.
from a different perspective.
One of the things that Dan kind of touched on was that we have an open enrollment policy. So people from all areas and all levels are in class together. In the class that I just taught last week, I had a forklift driver, an electrician, a plumber, an IT specialist, a customer service representative, a couple supervisors. Last year I had an executive director from another government agency in the same class with elevator mechanics. Okay, and the things that we're talking about are soft skills. You know, how do you deal with people? How do you lead people through change? What are some of the things, the behaviors that you can do to influence people? And we also say leadership is not about your scale or your pay. It's not about the grade or the position you have. Leadership is influence. Leadership is influence. And people say, well, I've been held back and I've been in this position for 8 years and I've never been able to move forward. And I try to get them to think out of the box, and I said, well, what do you think you can do now? Because I think what you've been doing maybe just hasn't quite been working for you. What can you identify a position in your department? Maybe there's one task in your department that somebody doesn't want to do. Maybe you can jump into that spot and you can take control. You can become the subject matter expert in this one area. You can make yourself essential to your agency by just grabbing one thing to do it and do it well. Do it to the best of your abilities. So leadership is in all areas, in all positions. Luckily, our director of our agency knew that. She knew that leadership needed to be done everywhere. And without executive support and without the support of the managers and everybody else, it never would have got off the ground. If the supervisors of the people that were going to class didn't see results, they weren't going to support it the following year. That was kind of what my theory was. Yeah, okay. So results, 64% of the people that completed the program say that they were better able to take advantage of leadership opportunities when they were present. 78% suggested using a leadership tool or a method, or gave some materials to a coworker. I've even had people come to work with a coworker to my office to say, hey, you know that book that you gave me in class? Can you give a copy to my coworker here? I think he could really use this right now. 64% agreed that participating in the LEAD program raised their engagement at work. And we measured those results, and we can confirm that. 58% say that the knowledge, skills, and abilities learned in the program helped them achieve a promotion or move them into a better job. So 58% got promotions after the program. 69% said that the awareness of their leadership style had a positive impact on their interaction with their supervisors, their coworkers, and with people in the agency. 69% said that the program made a positive impact on how they approached ethical issues. So we have open discussions about ethics in the in the program. And we have an ethics officer that comes in to talk about that, giving them a safe place to talk about those things. 75% felt that the program helped them to better define their core values. Imagine that, core values. People found out what their core values were from a class they took. 66% say that defining their personal mission statement helped them set their vision and goals, and also helped them achieve their vision and goals. And I get to hear great success stories all the time to people that say, hey, thanks to you, I took your class last year, you taught me something about myself that I didn't really realize, and I got a promotion since then. And thank you for showing that to me. 61% agreed that they were motivated to set lifelong learning goals. 75% said that the program helped them understand their leadership strengths and their gaps, areas of weakness. And we talk about focusing on your strengths and finding out what you do well. And maybe if you can get yourself into a leadership position, you can delegate those things you don't do well to somebody that can do them better than you. So using everybody on the team. 78% have used the knowledge gained from the program to improve the quality of customer service on their team. In our 2016 Viewpoint Survey, we compared our 2016 results to our 2012 results. We were nominated as one of the best places to work in the federal government in 2016 with our highest score. It was 8 points higher overall than it was in 2012. Specific scores related to that: leadership and management knowledge went up 7 points. Leaders lead went up by 8 points. Supervisors lead went up by 6 points. Training for the job went up 7 points. Communication in the agency was higher at 6 points, and we were one of the most innovative agencies. And that went up 7 points. Was that all because of this one class, this one program? Of course it wasn't. It had a lot to do with the transformational leadership and the transformation that our agency was going through at the time. But the transformational leader that we had at the time set up a program for us to succeed, to teach transformational leadership skills in a program to everybody at every level. And a lot of that all worked together. Takeaways: that you definitely have to have senior leadership support and buy-in. You have to have belief in the fact that leadership is important. You have to have takeaways. You have to see success. You have to see results from people that go through programs like this. If a supervisor let 5 of his people go that were operating machines in a production facility, and that supervisor didn't see progress or improvement, then chances are the next year that supervisor was going to say, "I'm not going to approve your application this year." So it's very important. Getting buy-in and support is important. So you have to produce and prove yourself. The right leadership development program can certainly increase employee engagement. We truly feel like that's the case. Some of our best customers in the training department, I manage the training department, were people that have gone through the LEAD program. People that went through leadership development, all of a sudden realize they're in charge of their own careers, and they need to start putting themselves into a position by learning more things to be better. So understanding leadership can help employees appreciate what their supervisors and their leaders and managers are doing now. A lot of folks just kind of felt like it was us versus them, and the leadership program kind of makes everybody realize that it's more than that. And having to learn to lead yourself is probably one of the most important takeaways from our programs. You're responsible for your development. It's not my job to tell you what you should do. You really need to think about what you want to do. You have a much better chance of hitting a target if you actually aim at it. So it's very important to understand, take responsibility. Leaders in the workplace, when people develop leadership skills, I heard a lot in class that, I always wondered what it was between my son and I. And I realized that it's a personality conflict. And I realized that it's an emotional intelligence issue that's kind of keeping us separate. So when people started learning leadership development skills and building their leadership skills, it really affected not just work, but people were leading better at home. I think leadership should start very early in the process. We're very fortunate that we can have an open door policy to everybody in the agency. So the sooner people get leadership skills, the better I think the results are going to be for them to take charge of their careers and develop their skills. So the earlier the better. Take risks with your program design. You don't have to follow the same old format of leadership development that everybody else does. Throw a customer service class in there, or throw an ethical opinion poll in your class to say, is it okay for you to make 2 copies of your personal tax return on the office copier? And then have a discussion about it, right? So some people say, yeah, it's okay, and some people say, no, it's not okay, right? So do something different, right? Get people thinking outside the box. Make them a little uncomfortable. Get them to lean into the discomfort a little bit if you can. And create a psychologically safe place that people can come to learn and practice their skills. Because just like everything else, the first time you do something, it's not going to go that well. The first time you get up in front of a crowd to talk, it's not going to be as comfortable and easy as the 50th time that you've done it. You have to just practice. right? And practicing leadership skills is the same way. Practicing conversations with people. If you're not comfortable dealing with conflict, if you avoid conflict, well then that very first time you have to sit down and tell somebody they did something wrong, it's going to be very difficult for you. But if you could practice it and get better at it, and if you could do it in the classroom a few times, it kind of starts the ball rolling, making people aware. So create a psychologically safe place. Trusted presenters certainly help the process. Building trust and what gets said in the lead program classroom stays in the lead program classroom. So having the right presenter that can say the right things and present lessons in life and not being afraid to open up and tell people things that you felt when you went through this is a very important part of the leadership process. And having the same presenter builds the trust in everybody in the class. And the same group of people together in the very first day, nobody's really talking, but then like Dan said, by the third day, we're being asked to be quiet in class because it's just a little too loud. So a successful model used. The LEAD program made us really aware of the fact that we should be doing other programs like this. We should be offering other programs in this model because everybody can go to class one day a week once a month, but not everybody can go to class for a whole week or 2 straight weeks in a row. I'm not trying to say what you're doing at the graduate school isn't working because I believe in the product that you have. But for us in the production environment, 1 day a month was a good model for us. So we started offering other classes. We offer a team dynamics class where we have business units all come in together as a team to work on trust issues 1 day a month. And we have a supervisor series where we have supervisors come in the practice critical conversations and crucial conversations with their employees. We do that 1 day a month or maybe once every 2 weeks based on the needs of our customers. We also offer the LEAD program and made us realize we have this thirsty group of people that want more and more and more professional development. So we also started teaching business analysis certification training in our agency. Project management, you can get your PMP certificate if you take the training in our agency. We do a Lean Six Sigma Green Belt certification training that if you go through this, you're going to get your Lean Six Sigma certificate from Duke University. We just finished up a program. We've trained 45 Lean Six certified green belts in our agency. We do Adobe InDesign certification training, Adobe Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator certification training, all the Microsoft products, Excel, Outlook, PowerPoint. You can get certification training in-house in our agency. So inspiring people to learn more, do more, also makes you have to produce more at a higher level. So thank you very much. Dan, you got anything to add to that?
Okay, so mine's not really about the program. We'll open it up for questions here in a second, but I just want to talk a little bit about what I've observed today with the 3 presentations. Developing internal employees is important because they have that corporate knowledge, right? And so making sure that you have the opportunity to move people up when those openings come up is very important. You heard that theme throughout all 3 presentations. Certification, assessment, and accessibility, being able to get to the training. So I just wanted to share that because I found that all 3 of us had that theme in common as well. So, are we out of time?
No.
Oh, I thought we were out of time.
Sir. Questions, anybody?
Yes.
Well, I think it's great, and I think this would be something that would be really beneficial for our organization to embrace as well. I also look at the fact that there are a lot of people that are interested in being supervisors, but don't really understand what goes into being a supervisor. Do you have people that go through the program that once they've gone through it, they go, this is not for me? Because sometimes we put people in positions where they become supervisors and they're not great supervisors because it wasn't necessarily for them. So does this offer that opportunity to go, aha, well, I've learned some great skills that I can apply in my current position, and even moving up, maybe supervisory is not necessarily the direction I want to go in.
So the surprising thing is you're 100% right. We do have a lot of people say, you know what, being a supervisor is about people, and people are messy, and I don't want to do that. But what we really find is that they still don't drop out because they realize that this is helping them with their families. It's helping them with whatever it's helping them with their coworkers. You know, just being able to interact better with their coworkers as well. We do not sell this program as a way to become a supervisor. As a matter of fact, we absolutely refuse. We have great success of people moving up into supervisor positions, but we don't even talk about it because we don't want people to think that's what the program's about. It's really about you and your leadership and your ability to interact with people on that leadership level. Yeah. The only time I've had people drop out is because they just don't want to do the work. You know, because there's a lot of work between the monthly or one-day class. Yes, sir.
I think Stuart mentioned that you had someone from another agency in one of your lead program.
Yes.
So how would you go about trying to participate in your program? What's the process going that?
Great question. I can talk to you after class. How's that sound?
Don't open it up too wide.
We are working on developing, opening our doors. Right now we have agent. You know, GPO opened its doors in 1861, the day Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated. And once upon a time we had 9,000 employees working there. And right now there's about 1,760 people. We have a very, very large former manufacturing and printing facility that has been downsized because we've become digital. So we are actually renting space out, thanks to the great mind and leadership of GPO, to say we can start renting space out to other government agencies so that we're not taking up all this space all by ourselves. So we have other agencies that are leasing space from us. And right now we're letting them take the classes that we offer at our agency. So we have tenants that are, it's customer service, right? We're offering them, there's a good reason why you should be renting space from us, because we'll let you take our classes if you want to, right? It's part of the mission and the vision we all work together on. So and Dan and I have talked about, you know, we do such a good job, maybe we should start opening our doors to other agencies to come take our class. So the reason I say let's talk after is because we kind of have to work through that change a little bit.
We would not have the capacity to help another agency really, but what we'd be willing to do is share our model with you, and you know, and then you could go to another graduate school and say, hey, can you help us out with this? We'd be more than willing. We feel very fortunate. We're not doing anything that's not out there in the public domain. We just through this kind of this. You know, what do they say about steel? The hotter the fire, the stronger the steel. So when we started this program, it was a hot fire, right? You know, you got 12 unions staring you down. You know, you've got the supervisor and manager saying, nobody's leaving for 2 days. You know, what are you talking about? We're not going to do that. So it really kind of made us think outside the box and kind of, you know, do some things. And we also, because there's a program of attraction, we had to make sure there's some real aha moments happening in there with the people that attended. And you know, part of our goal is for the employees that may not want to move up and be a supervisor or manager to understand kind of what the supervisors and managers go through every day. And what we found is by them understanding why they have to make those decisions, it's really increased our employee engagement. We did not set out as an employee engagement, you know, to raise employee engagement in the agency. We set out to develop leaders wherever they may land. But it ended up really raising the employee engagement. So that's why we wanted to share that with you, because we think this is an avenue that you could use to do that. Yes, ma'am.
So you guys talked on it being a volunteer situation. Then you also mentioned about having supervisory support. What kind of application process do people go through to be a part of the LEAD program over the 10 months?
Great question. We have a very low-tech way of asking people to enroll in class. We are the government publishing office. We are very high-tech, but we have a paper enrollment form that we ask people to sign, to fill out and say, I want to take this class, and get your supervisor to sign off on it. And when your supervisor signs it and you sign it and you bring it to my department, I enroll you in the class.
That was a really good question, because part of the problem was, you know, this was kind of never done before, right? So I'm signing up, and 10 months from now, I'm still going to go to a class.
Right.
How's my supervisor going to know that, right? And we do have a learning management system that sends out an email, But we all know what happens to a lot of emails in our email box, right? We're like, yeah, I've got 200 to answer, I'm going to pick these 50 today. So what we did was we actually took the application form for this program, actually has all the classes listed in the days. And the supervisor has to initial that, saying that they read that and they understand that. Because we were getting 2 courses in, and the employees were coming heartbroken in our office saying, you know, my supervisor's going to pull me out, they didn't realize what they committed to. So we wanted to make sure that just didn't happen anymore. So.
And how big are your cohorts? Sorry, follow.
We try to start with about 30. That's a little too many, but a lot of people, once they realize the commitment, you know, in the Marine Corps, we used to call it magic dust. You know, there's no magic dust to sprinkle on somebody to make them a Marine. They got to do the hard work. And that's the same with the LEAD program. You know, people have to do the hard work, and some people aren't that committed. I do want to talk about the issue with an open enrollment program. When we first opened this program, we worked 3 shifts. So there's always concern about being fair to the 3rd shift personnel, right? So we said, we're going to open this program at 12:01 a.m., so a minute after midnight, on this day, and we're going to take the first, I think we're going to do 2 cohorts, so we're going to take the first 60 people. The program filled up within a minute. People were staying up and faxing that in. Now, the lesson to me on that is, there's people out there that are hungry for leadership development opportunities. Not just leadership development, but just self-development, you know, that personal leadership to kind of get your life together. You know, I've got a person on my team, and I stopped by and I was just saying, how are you doing today? And she's in Stu's class this year, and she goes, Dan, I just have to tell you. And a half an hour later, I was like, she was still telling me about how going to the LEAD program, you know, she said, I don't really want to be a supervisor or manager. I don't want to deal with the people's messiness. She said, but what I want to do is get my act together. And she said, this is really getting my act together. And she's a very successful person. And I'm like thinking, what did you have to get together? But it's interesting to hear that. So, you had a question?
I did.
And you had a question.
So I have 2 questions. I'm piggyback hers. For example, in our agency, we do have we have in-house classes in our agency. Sometimes we do run into an issue where we have managers and supervisors who allow their employees to come to training, but then they want to schedule all these meetings and pull them out. So what happens, what do you all do in those instances where you have a student who's coming to class, maybe they're 3 months in, and you're finding now that they're missing month 5, month 7, month 8 because a manager supervisor is interfering? Do they have to de-enroll, or do you just allow them to continue on with the program until they finish, or
So part of it is we do these several days. Our cohorts are several days apart. Generally, we had them about a week apart. So if something came up like that, they could drop into the other cohort. And we actually open the class by introducing them, because these other 25 people don't know them, right? And they're like, who's this person in my class? Why are they here? So we do that. We used to have an online component, but it was getting a little too much to keep it up because it was something that we had built through putting together a bunch of different little programs separately. But we're so committed to them, we'll do one-on-one if we need to. You know, we'll rearrange our schedule, and we'll, you know, if there's 2 of them that missed it, we'll try to get those 2 together. But if they want to continue on, we want them to continue on. And we want to make sure they understand we're committed to that too.
We do our best to accommodate whenever we can. For example, a lady in my class 2 years ago had to go to Cleveland for her nephew's graduation, and she was going to miss class, and he was graduating from college. And I said, well, if you have a Skype camera, I can put the camera in the middle of the room, put a microphone in there, we'll put a phone on the table so you can be part of the group discussions. So we Skyped her in for training, right? And it went so well that somebody asked again if they could do it again. Would I be able to do that? Because I was planning on going to visit my sister down in Florida, but I don't want to miss the class. It's like, if you can Skype in, sure. And then the following year, last year, we had 2 people who worked at our Stennis, Mississippi regional office. We have offices throughout the United States at GPO. 2 people actually Skyped in for every class last year and took the virtual training in class. And we got them involved. We made it up as we went along. We put a phone on the table and we said, okay, you guys are going to have a group discussion about this topic. You guys at this table, you got 2 people on the phone that you need to include in this process.
And then I think you kind of answered the next question, which was you have an open enrollment, but you also apparently have a rolling enrollment. And what's the space in between each cohort?
Well, what we learned was you start with this one, you got to go through them all. So we don't let people drop into the program and join the cohort part of the way through. If they're in another cohort and they miss a class, we'll let them jump in for that one. We used to start it about every 6 months. Now we start it every year. We could probably start more often. You know, kind of the conversation Stuart and I have is all training and development has a shelf life. You know, at some point, everybody that's interested in it's going to take it. This just hasn't died. It just keeps, you know, so every year we're getting 40, 60 people to sign up. And that seems to work because it's a 10-month program. We have an agency level graduation for people graduating this program that Davita asked. She goes, so that first group's going to be done, right? And I said, yes, ma'am. And she goes, well, what are we going to do an agency graduation for them or what? And I was like, yes, ma'am. And as all of you know that put events on, an agency level graduation is like planning a wedding, right? And then after an hour after, you know, it's an hour-long program and you're exhausted at the end. So, but I also wanted to say that another thing we do is we've really reached out to the managers to explain the program and explain the commitment they're making as well. And also having, you know, it was Davita and Herb Jackson. Herb Jackson's now the champion. You know, the employee could actually go to Herb and say, I really need to stay in this program. Can you intervene on my behalf? And I've seen Herb actually do that. I mean, that's how strongly they believe in the program at the agency. Herb Jackson's our chief administrative officer, my boss.
But we also set expectations right up front. We say to complete the whole program, you have to attend the class and you have to complete all the exercises. And when, like you said, people kind of drift in and drift out of training, and sometimes people don't quite take training really seriously. They come in an hour after the training started, right? And then they have to leave early. And their habitual offenders are the ones that always, life's too busy for me to be in this class. We talk about it. We just talk about it. We say you have to complete the class, you have to complete the exercises. That's just the way it is. And we try to find a way to do it if we possibly can.
You had a question?
Yes, I was just wondering, do you have a budget? Or do you have people that are in other areas of the country, or is everyone sort of located in the metropolitan area?
Okay, so the question is, do we have other people in other areas of the country? Yes.
And do we have a budget?
And do we have a budget? The budget really is our salaries, the instructor's salaries, and this is not the only thing they do. The first year when we developed it, I actually developed the course and taught it the first year, and I spent a majority of my time. So that was a year worth of salary spent on the program at that point. But we have our own facilities. We spend probably about $10,000 a year on books and assessments as well. So the other part of the question was, do we have people outside this area? We are lucky in the fact that, you know, about 1,300 of our employees work within a couple blocks of us, about 5 blocks from the house. But we have 400 employees that do not. Those 400 employees are in an off-site that we do passports, and I can't tell you the location. And then we have a warehouse in Laurel, Maryland. We have the Pueblo Center, the award-winning, right? So remember back when they used to advertise, they say, right, Pueblo, to get this, right? That's our facility. We're the folks shipping those out to everybody. And then we also have 15 regional offices so we have a print specialist in San Diego that takes care of the needs of the federal employees there when it comes to print. So we actually did an online component for them, and it actually got rave reviews as well. We've kind of grown since then because we've been able to do the BTC a lot better, and they like to be included in those table conversations. We teach about 30% of the time, and the other 70% is more interaction, listening to the employees and their opinions of that, and kind of how that, you know,
kind of using the model to help them solve those problems, and then group discussions as well. And they like to be part of that. So we actually switched to total VTC at this time for them. Any other, oh, one more, yep.
Amanda Moore, Federal Aviation Administration. So my question is related to instructors. So we've gotten, just a taste of all the goodness that you have to share. So what does it take and how do you select the instructors for the different cohorts coming through?
Well, that's scary, to be honest with you. I think hiring in the federal government is scary to begin with, because, we got lucky when I left the program. Stuart had done several things, and I kind of knew that we had somebody internally that could take this up for us. We're probably going to be reaching outside. Stuart's actually moved up. He's now the Chief of Workforce Development. So we need to replace the instructor in that position. And that instructor does more than just instruct. They have to develop curriculum. We've got grand plans. We just don't have enough time, enough assets. It's scary. So we're actually going to do what they call a work assessment in human capital, where we're going to have the instructor come in and present a leadership topic of their choice but approved by us. And we're going to bring in lead program graduates to evaluate those. So they're going to be our SMEs. And because we've realized it's not necessarily the content, it's the way the content's delivered. It's the way the questions are answered. It's the actual true concern for the employee, and them getting through the program and being successful and doing something with this to better their lives.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I know you guys are hungry. We're almost done. I just want to thank Dan and Stuart once again for providing us with that very useful information. I'm sure that they have given us information that we can use as a framework for employee engagement. We'll now have closing remarks for our President and CEO, Jackie Bowski.
And at the very big risk of standing between you and lunch. And I know we ran over a little bit, so I'll keep my remarks to the bare minimum. First of all, I would like to thank all the presenters from the agencies that were here today for the excellent work that you've been doing along the line and for sharing that with us today. That's greatly appreciated. And for all of you, I think you can understand why they were awardees of the Deming Training in Excellence, because the work they do in their agencies is quite exceptional. So thank you all. I'd also like to thank Davita Vance-Cooks for joining us today. Davita, your remarks on transformational leadership I think resonate with everybody here, and certainly with me in this organization as we go through some of the things that you talked about. The digital revolution, the transformation from the generational change and shifts that are coming and whatnot. It was very good for us here. So thank you for being here. I know we've done a little bit, but our team here at grad school really worked hard to put this event together. So I would like to thank Kim Price Harwood and the team in the grad school. Whether or not you are in uniform, please do stand. So thanks for all the work that you guys did here. So this session is the next in a series of events like this that we would like to run to bring some good value to all of you beyond the training that we provide and that you come into to the school to get. And we thank you for being a partner with the graduate school. I think it was Dan who mentioned that Abraham Lincoln was the president when the GPO was established. Graduate school was established nearly 100 years ago, a mere 100 years ago in 1921. Anyone know who the president in 1921 was? Quick answer. Warren Harding. There you go, Warren Harding. Good job. We are also very appreciative of the feedback that you may have on this session and the ideas that you may have for us for the future. I'm not going to ask now for those, but we'll all be together in a luncheon, so if you could seek out one of our grad school staff if you have something that you wanted to share, I welcome, or ask you that you do that, we would welcome all of that from you. And with that, we do have lunch. So I believe it's in our room 202, which if you went out the door, it would be to the right, and then to the left, and it would be about a halfway paste on the hall. Or of course, there's a sign. And that'll be fine. But again, thank you for taking time out of your busy days, for coming here to share with us. And I hope to have networked with your peers and continue that networking with your peers either through lunch and beyond. So we look forward to having you back at the school one day or another. And thank you again very much.